This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What is up, everybody? Hope you had a great weekend. Man, there certainly was no shortage of sports on the local scene to get to. Had the Bombers, we had Valor, we had the Sea Bears, we had the Gold Eyes, all in action at home. And, of course, the Stanley Cup Playoffs continuing, and it looks like it could be another short 4 games in the conference finals for the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Oilers are looking good after a big win yesterday. 6-1 over the Dallas Stars in a game that Stuart Skinner was the first star. This was not your average 6-1 game, but the Oilers in control of their series, looking to go up 3-1 in game number 4 tomorrow. We have a lot to get to on today's program. We'll break down everything from the Bomber preseason game on Saturday afternoon with John Hodge of 3 Down Nation. Mike McIntyre is going to join us for a little bit of hockey talk, a little more on the Jets offseason, as well as what he's seen in these conference finals right now. And then a little later on, we'll have our first of many guests this week because, everybody, beginning today, right through Friday and Saturday with the game, it is officially Desiree Scott week on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Des, the Olympic gold medalist, the greatest soccer player that this community has ever produced, is playing her final game as a member of Canada's women's national team on Saturday, right here in her hometown of Winnipeg, as Canada takes on Haiti. You'll see many of the stars of the gold medal team, the newest faces in Canadian soccer, but the star of the show is going to be the Destroyer herself. So if you haven't already, there are ticket links in the description of today's show on YouTube, as well as on the podcast. It is a 1 o'clock start. The weather is going to be absolutely gorgeous. We need to see a great turnout from Winnipeg for our own Desiree Scott. And, we'll sort of be celebrating Des's amazing career throughout the week with a bunch of guests. Looking forward to having Des on, some of the other women from the current national team. But today, to start things off, thought who better than someone that was somewhat of a veteran when Des started. And that, of course, is Diana Matheson. Diana scored the bronze medal winning goal in the 2012 Olympics. And Diana is now the founder and chief growth officer of the Northern Super League, which is Canada's women's national league, which has just started. And Desiree is playing for Ottawa. She finishes up her professional career as well. So Diana Matheson a little later on. Saturday, you're going to want to be there. And we do have some tickets. So if you go over to our website at winnipegsportstalk.com, click on contest, throw in your information. We'll be giving away a bunch of tickets Wednesday, Thursday for folks to get in. So we'd love to have you out there getting behind Desiree, and it's going to be a lot of fun talking about her amazing career this week on Winnipeg Sports Talk. So Diana Matheson a little later on. JBM, Jake Bolin Moss, is going to jump on as well. See what he thought about the action on the weekend. Blue Jays, tough weekend down in Tampa. But speaking of baseball, our Gold Eyes night is set. June 19th, Thursday night, our second Winnipeg Sports Talk patio party. We've got the lower patio deck, all for WST. So all you need to do is grab your tickets. Go to the website. We've got look at this, Remis is on it. WST at the Goldeyes, June 19th, 2025. Tickets for wristbands with the access to the patio party, $20 all in on our website right now. And as we did last year, you'll get confirmation and your receipt that you've got a ticket for the game. Instead of sending out tickets as we normally do, we'll have a table right at the front by the box office when you join in. And we'll meet you there. You'll pick up your wristbands, which allow you access to the field level patio deck. And then we'll set up shop and hopefully have another great day. Last year's was amazing. It was just the most well-pitched, quickest game of all time. So we'll have a little bit more time for some little brown jugs and some great food at the ballpark. I'm thinking this year. But we have a limited amount of tickets, so get on those now, folks. WinnipegSportsTalk.com. Click on the link, get your tickets, and we'll look forward to seeing you Thursday night, June 19th, down at the ballpark. Let's get Remis in here. First up, though, a big thanks to all the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Of course, our friends at Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, Rollies Transfer, Safe Patel Dental Center, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, F Apparel, and Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Ben Moss, Prairie Toyota Dealers, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug, The Goldeyes, Assiniboia Downs, Breezy Bend. We'll get to fan feedback for fansfirst.ca, and of course, do a why not question of the day for not Autocorp, but Waverly and McGillivray. Oh, and of course, our friends at Canadian Club as well. Remis, what's up? How was your weekend?
Great weekend. Had a great Sunday yesterday. I went to the Forks. It was bumping there. A lot of people taking it in, getting outside, getting my steps in. Wonderful weekend. Great weather. Makes up for that. It's the discrepancy in weather changes. Like this time a week ago, it was freezing. It was raining. And it was beautiful this past weekend. So I'm in a good mood here, feeling like summer kind of with the Jets out of the playoffs. And we had Bombers kicking off, Sea Bears underway. Goldeyes were here over the weekend as well. So lots to take in. Yeah, you mentioned big soccer match on Saturday. Should be a wonderful day. And you saw so many people at the Bomber game Saturday. Who cares that it's preseason? It's against Saskatchewan. You're outside enjoying Princess Auto Stadium. No better way to spend an afternoon.
Well, totally. And listen, this game on Saturday is a real opportunity. I mean, listen, Desiree Scott has done so much for our community, for soccer in this country, but we've never really had an opportunity to pack that stadium for her here in her hometown. So I just love the fact that Canada Soccer decided to put this game against Haiti here in Winnipeg. And this is someone that is represented. And I mean, Dez's story, starting off, at the University of Manitoba and going all the way to 3 Olympic medals, including a gold medal, is simply legendary. So if you are able to make the game, grab your friends, grab your families, get out there for what should be great. And of course, our women's national team still ranks 7th in the world, an incredible group of women. They'll be a favorite against Haiti, but as we'll find out from Diana a little later on, some very talented young players on the Haitian team. But this is about Desiree Scott and our chance to appreciate her. So get over, enter the contest for tickets, click that link to buy tickets for the event, and I'm hoping we've got a beautiful day like this, Remis. And listen, bottom line is it's going to be really fun to be talking about Des. And the minute you bring up, hey, we were hoping to speak to someone about maybe their memories of Desiree Scott, everyone jumps at the opportunity because of the person that she is. So it should be great. Speaking of the weather, I mean, you mentioned Saturday afternoon, Princess Auto Stadium, all weekend long at the ballpark for the Winnipeg Goldeyes. Obviously, the Sea Bears are indoors. It wasn't a great weekend for the Sea Bears. They lost a couple to Calgary. They're back at home on Wednesday night this week. But there was no shortage of stuff to get to. And as I said, the weather just perfect. Went out to Breezy yesterday had just an absolutely glorious round of golf out there. Of course, it's going to be getting tough as they juice this thing up for the Manitoba Open later on this summer. Might be spending a little bit more time in the rough this year. Oh, you know what else I did, Remo? I did my annual visit to the Royal Tent Sale.
Yes, I saw a huge line on Instagram there, and I drove by too. It looked very busy.
It was crazy, as it always is, but there's a reason for it, because there is so much stock and there are so many great deals. I think I've now figured this out. Every couple of years, I'll go in and just go nuts. I got 5 pairs of shoes on.
Oh my
on
God,
weekend.
Good for you.
But I needed them, and the whole thing ended up being such a great deal. I couldn't stop saying yes. So, anyways, lots of good things going on. Goldeyes game, soccer game this week. Go to the website. Make sure you get in for the draws and buy your tickets for that Goldeye game on the 19th of June, Thursday night. Hope to see you all there. Listen, we're going to talk Bombers coming up with John Hodge in just a few minutes. Are we going to be breaking the brooms out tonight as the Florida Panthers do it again to the Carolina Hurricanes, Reem? I felt sorry for the Canes on the weekend. They're just getting emasculated by this team.
It's not going well. 15 straight losses in the conference final, going back to 2009. But the important ones are the last couple of seasons where Carolina's had great regular seasons, great playoffs until the conference final. Can't quite get it done. And I think it shows you the discrepancy between the divisions here, with the Atlantic being very strong and the Metro not as much. And Carolina, you had some concerns. I think when you were doing pools, has not a lot of people on Carolina. You've seen it before from them in the playoffs where they just can't quite get over the hump to the Cup final. I don't know what it is, but their stars haven't showed up. They're getting pushed around, and I think Florida is showing that they're heads and shoulders above some of the other teams. And I wonder, for all the Leafs fans out there, does this make you feel differently about how they performed this year in their series against Florida? Does it make you feel differently about wanting to keep Mitch Marner around, as it seems like he is headed for unrestricted free agency and likely won't be re-signing with Toronto, because that was a 7-game series and Toronto didn't show up for 2 of those games? Or did they not show up, or does Florida just do that to other teams? I think maybe we need to reevaluate what we've seen so far in the playoffs.
Hey, let me throw this out to the chat, and I'll put this to you as well. We'll do this for the Why Not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. I was just talking with Dusty on the Lock Shop, and we got into talking about Sam Bennett. What do you think Sam Bennett is going to sign with? And I'll the caveat being, if he leaves Florida to essentially go to the highest bidder, how much money is Sam Bennett going to get on a per year basis? Sam Bennett, I believe his career high is like 55 points for him. But you look at what he does in the playoffs and the edge that he plays with, and how that in a lot of ways is the ethos of what the Florida Panthers are. Like, people have been throwing out $9, $10+ million. I actually think that there's going to be a team that will play this and pay this. And I do wonder whether we're going to be getting to a point with some players where it is not just all about regular season statistics, which has been usually the arbiter of how much money guys get. If you have a great playoff run, obviously that'll help you boost it up a little bit. What do you think is going to be out there for Sam Bennett if he says, you know what, this is my one chance to sign a huge contract and I'm going to go do it? How high will the highest bid be for Sam Bennett? Not because of his average numbers in the regular season, but what he's able to do for a team come playoff time with his physicality and more.
Yeah, I'm looking at AFP Analytics, who puts contract projections together. They have him at, and they're going to have to increase this, at a 6-year, 6.37 million. Now that projection was made mid-season.
That's not even close to what he'll get.
I think it's looking like at least 8 million. Could some teams go to 10? He's 29 years old, but plays a type of game. While the points might not be there, this is a player, as much as I don't like some of the stuff that he's done in the past, that you want to have in the playoffs. And Florida has found a way to play this type of game where they're pushing other teams around, getting in other teams' faces, but also they're getting points from every line. It's not just one line crushing them. Like E2 Luosterainen, if you took him at the end of your hockey pool, you're doing pretty well there. Evan Rodriguez contributing, and well done. Florida, congratulations to them. I don't want to say on making the Stanley Cup final, but they are up 3-0 and looks like we're headed for a sweep. And I think very likely a rematch of last year, the first time a Stanley Cup rematch since Penguins Red Wings in 08 and 09.
Yeah, all signs point to a rematch right now. We'll get to Edmonton, Dallas in a minute. But yeah, the Bennett thing is so interesting. Like, what would the Toronto Maple Leafs, especially if Mitch Marner's leaving and coming off the books, what would they pay to have Sam Bennett? Now, again, it is funny to note that Brad Treleving was the GM that traded Sam Bennett from Florida, or from the Flames to the Florida Panthers. And certainly looking back now, one would say, now again, contract was a big part of it as to when he was going to be finishing up, but it wasn't going well in Calgary. He's gone. But Treleving's watching this. I mean, they just played that series against Florida. Like, what would Toronto be giving? Like, with the money that they have to spend. They're trying to get a different look, a different makeup of their team. I mean, poaching Bennett from the Panthers to Toronto might be the most significant move of the entire offseason.
Yeah, it's kind of funny as you look at how Florida has built their team, and they traded some players, who were a bit younger, and players maybe didn't live up to their draft status. Sam Bennett was acquired for Sam Bennett for a second-round pick and prospect Emil Heineman. That was in April of 2021. They got Sam Reinhart, only for a first-round pick. So Florida, you can talk about no tax states and great weather and all that. Their GM has gone out and made some big trades that has boosted them to this level. Gustav Forsling, waiver wire pickup, one of the top defensemen in the league. And back to Sam Bennett, I mean, he would be an asset. I think he'll re-sign with Florida. Wouldn't you want to keep this group together that is on their way to back-to-back Stanley Cup champions? But if I'm sure some other teams are going to be throwing out big dollars, you see the way that he plays, what he can do, and it certainly would be an asset. Toronto, would they want to re-sign him? Or sign him? Probably. $8 million. I mean, you can take Marner's money and distribute it more evenly. We talk about how tough it is with them, with 4 players making over $40 million. The cap is going up. We're going to be seeing some big contracts for sure. And
well, this is the thing. I do think that, I bet Florida could find 8 to give him. Like, if you're going to be able to get Sam Bennett, you're going to have to significantly beat the offer from the Panthers. And the reason why, I mean, a lot of guys, I would say, well, yeah, they'll probably just stick around. Here's the thing with Bennett, though. Now, I mean, again, this is NHL money, so for all of us, it would be life-changing. But I mean, his contract that he's just finishing up, he's paying him 4.4. He'll have the opportunity, I think, to double it and then some. And you do wonder how many people well, let's do Fans First fan feedback right now. Brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. No fees. What you see is what you pay. I know Jet season's done, but Bomber season is here. And yes, Fans First is your go-to spot for buying and selling Winnipeg Blue Bomber tickets as well on the resale market. So we put out, what do you think Sam Bennett's going to get? Stonewall Dave, someone will give Bennett $9 million. Jay Miller, 10. Stonewall Dave, if Chevy gave him 10, I would not complain. Phyllis says Sam Bennett, 9-5 to 10. Kevin Case, some team will give him 10. I have to admit it, Reem. I believe this. He is such a force and adds that edge and that toughness along with the ability to play at a high level that is just so rare. Like, we kick around, like, what if Tom Wilson was a free agent? What would he go for? It would be astronomical, and the number would far, far exceed what his actual statistics call for, because there is that element that, well, put it this way, if you want to beat the Florida Panthers, who are the standard right now in the league, you got to have it. And it seems like a lot of people are sort of with me that there is going to be a massive, and you can call it an overpay if you want. It is what the market's going to bear. There's a premium on what Sam Bennett has, and a lot of other guys don't, and they're certainly not available as free agents. So I think that'll be it. Jay Miller Chevy should offer 10. And as I say, the cost to get Sam Bennett to come to Winnipeg as an unrestricted free agent, I usually don't even go down those roads because more often than not, we're not even in the mix. But man, you put Sam Bennett in at the 2C spot on this Winnipeg Jet team, be pretty wild. Fan feedback brought to you by Fans First. By fans, for fans. Of course, check out the site today, fansfirst.ca. Available for Bomber season throughout the year. All right, speaking of Bomber season, David D says 10 is laughable. I mean, certainly based on his numbers, for sure. Based on the reality of the Stanley Cup playoffs, I don't think so. Especially with the cap going up and such a scarce free agent class this year. Keep your thoughts coming in to the feedback line. T-Cona Pauly's in there. Of course, I'm president of the Tom Wilson fan club. I cried for him for years. Yeah, we'll get to Ehlers' contract and all that stuff a little later on. We'll see what happens. And yes, boring Sean Monahan. The Jets would have to pay Bennett $11 million a year to come to Winnipeg and make up the tax difference. Yeah, I wouldn't get your hopes up for Bennett if you're a Jet fan. I don't have it. But I am very interested to see, especially if they win the Cup again. And he's right there front and center if that's what makes it happen. All right, John Hodge coming up in just a minute to get going for a little recap of what happened with the Bombers on the weekend. Nice win on a beautiful day down at Princess Auto Stadium. Let me thank our friends at Rolly's Transfer for their support of WST. Of course, Rolly's, family owned and operated for over 60 years in Winnipeg, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. Check out their website at rollies.com and click on Request an Estimate. Put in that promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. And let them know when and where you're planning on moving and what needs to be moved. And the friendly staff at Rollies will turn it around quickly, get you a great quote, and get you locked in for the white glove service that Rollies is famous for now into their 7th decade. For all of your moving needs, use the leaders in moving in Manitoba, Rollies Transfer. Find out more, request an estimate today over at rollies.com. Looking forward to having my pal Terry James on a little later on to set up the Manitoba Match Play Championship this weekend. Of course, Dr. Terry, phenomenal golfer himself, longtime member of the Manitoba golf scene. And the St. Vital Dental Center is the proud sponsor of the Match Play Championships this year. St. Vital Dental Center is where you and your family can get some of the best in dental service from Dr. Terry and his amazing team. They've been serving generations of Winnipeggers and Manitobans at St. Vital Dental Center for years. Now I've got a beautiful new facility at 167 St. Anne's, free parking, conveniently located right behind the building, and a full array of dental services for patients from 6 months to 99 plus, everything from cleanings and checkups all the way to dental implants. For all your dental needs, hit up our friends at St. Vital Dental Center. Tell them WST sent you. Find out more. Book an appointment at stvitaldental.ca. Was a gorgeous weekend. I did enjoy a couple more of the Canadian Club ready-to-drink cocktails. Had one actually at the Taste of the Bombers as well. Of course, Suntory, Canadian Club, the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Right now, till the end of the month of May, pop in your local Manitoba liquor marts and grab the club pack on sale all month long with 4cc and gingers, 4 of the Canadian Club Citrus Smashes, and 4 of the new Half and Half, which is the drink of the summer for the golf course. Canadian Club, the iconic Canadian Club, the official and original Canadian whiskey. Pick it up at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And just before we bring in John, of course, it was the start and it will be the start of bomber season. You're getting ready to start your summer season, cabins, camping. Get on down to Manitoba Battery and get batteries to take you through the summer at the best prices in town. You can save as much as $50 a battery on your boat or camper battery at Manitoba Battery as opposed to going to the big box stores. So don't waste your money, save it, and get the best service in town as well. 2 locations, Logan Avenue, Dover Court Drive in the south end of the city. And of course, they'll also deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. It is just that easy. For all your battery needs, shop local, save money, manitobabattery.com. All right, let's talk some Bombers. Mike McIntyre is going to join us a little bit later on. But we got our first look at the new squad. And, of course, John Hodge of 3 Down Nation's all over it. 3 Down Nation featuring 14 thoughts on the Bombers' preseason win over Saskatchewan. John joins us now. What's going on? How's the weekend?
Weekend was great, Huss. I mean, you mentioned it. We had an absolutely spectacular day of weather at Princess Auto Stadium. I remember last year, right? Preseason was miserable, and then the regular season opener against Montreal was like 8 degrees and gray skies. So getting out there for a late May preseason game in 22 degrees Celsius was it was a treat. And I thought for preseason football, it's a different metric, of course, than regular season, but for a preseason football game, I thought it was really watchable. And that is something that can't be said for a lot of preseason football.
Well, you know what? It's funny you mentioned that, John, because in contrast to last year with the beautiful weather, we also had some of the big dogs on the Blue Bombers actually suit up. And it really did seem, once we saw the depth chart, that Mike O'Shea and his staff taking a very different approach to the preseason this year than they did last year, which bled into an 0-4 start that sort of had them playing catch-up all year.
Yeah, and I asked Zach about that after the game. I said, well, when did you know that you'd be going in? And he said, well, a couple days ago, Osh basically tapped me on the shoulder and just said, yeah, you're playing. And I said, okay. And it doesn't seem like they really had an elaborate conversation about it. But certainly I think it's a different tack than they've taken in the past. And you wonder if maybe the week 1 bye has something to do with that. And in the case of Zach in particular, maybe the 1 game suspension has something to do with that. Like Zach isn't going to get a chance to play until week 2. And that week 2 game, I mean, we're talking about the 3rd week of June. Like he's going to go the better part of a month before he gets the chance to play in a regular season game. So I thought it was smart for the club to sit some of the guys who have been a little bit banged up, right? Obviously, we know like Nick Dembski didn't play. Dalton Schoen coming back from that torn ACL didn't play. But most of the veterans did, and I thought that they put on a pretty good show for the local fans in the first quarter. There wasn't a lot of deep stuff on offense. It was a lot of quick hitting stuff, which I'd imagine was designed to take some pressure off of the offensive line, ensure that Zach didn't take too many hits. But it made for what I thought was, again, relative to most preseason football, an entertaining game.
Beyond Zach, what do you make of the quarterback room right now? And listen, I guess maybe we should also just get your thoughts on the extension that you, of course, or I guess your colleague Justin Dunk, I believe, broke last Friday. I'd been thinking a lot like, geez, is this going to be the year? Like they got to figure out who the next guy is, and they bought themselves a little bit of time with the 1-year extension for Zach.
Yeah, I think there's been speculation that Zach could be done right after this year's Grey Cup, depending, of course, on whether or not Winnipeg is in that Grey Cup game, whether or not they win that game, which, of course, local fans are desperately hoping they do. That being said, I think this is a message from Zach, loud and clear, that he's not looking retirement down the barrel. I would assume he's thought about it a little bit. When I asked him at the end of last season, are you guaranteed to be back? He didn't say it was a 100% chance. He said, well, I have to talk to my family first. But he said, if I'm remembering correctly, he said it was somewhat of a 99.9% chance that he'd be back, but not 100. So clearly when you get to his age, right, he's 36, turning 37 this summer. He'll be 38 by the time this new contract is done. I think it's appropriate to kind of reflect on those things. That being said, I mean, he set a new career high for yardage last season. And I know a lot of fans are all over him about the Grey Cup appearance, which obviously was again, for the third Grey Cup in a row, not a good performance from him. The thing that nobody seems to be talking about is the fact that he was absolutely sensational in the West Final. I believe it was 4 touchdown passes in that game. He hit Kenny Lawler for 3 against a very good Saskatchewan Roughriders defense, right? You had Jameer Thurman having a career year. You've got a ton of guys on that defensive line. Malik Carney, Micah Johnson having great years. They had Roland Milligan Jr., the best defensive player in the entire CFL last year in the secondary, and Zach shredded that group. So, yes, there's a valid criticism of the way in which he only threw 17 touchdowns last year. That was barely half of what he did the year before. The fact that he did not have a good Grey Cup game, I think Zach himself would admit that. But there were also some high peaks last year. And when you look at the rest of the market, Huss, I mean, this is a league where Nathan Rourke is tied up through 2026. VA is tied up through 2026. Trey Ford is tied up through 2026. Chad Kelly, Davis Alexander, like you name the quarterback, they're locked up through 2026. The only guys I can really think of right now off the top of my head who are available post-2025, at least right now, are Trevor Harris and Bo Levi Mitchell. And both of those players have something in common. They're old like Zach, right? Neither of those guys are a Drew Brown, who, by the way, is now under contract through 2026, or a guy like a Trey Ford, who's potentially up and coming. Like, these are both guys who are in their mid to late 30s, just like Zach is. And so I think if you're Winnipeg, why not do that? And my sourcing indicates that the contract that Zach signed for 2026 is worth essentially the exact same he's making now, which means that with the salary cap going up, there's actually going to be a little bit more money for the Bombers to play with. Like, relative to the cap, he's taking a slightly lower percentage. So financially, I think it makes sense for the club as well.
Just staying with quarterback before we get to the guys catching the ball, it is looking like it's going to be Strev in week number 1. Thoughts on Strevler and where he's at and how he's bounced back from a horrible injury last year? It is sort of amazing. He looks as good as he does right now, just as an athlete, before we get to actually playing quarterback.
Yeah, he ran kind of a read option look in that preseason game. Couldn't get the edge. The Riders did a really nice job of containing that run play. That being said, I thought Strevler did a great job of absorbing a hit right on that knee. I spoke to Strevler after the game, and he said it felt good. It felt good to get that hit out of the way. And you have to have respect, right, for how quickly he bounced back from this injury. Like, he suffered this injury in the Banjo Bowl. That is, the first, second week of September. And it's looking like he's going to start a football game on June 12th. And not only that, he's been a full participant in camp really this whole time, which is remarkable. The other thing I'll say about Strev, and look, I don't think anybody would ever argue that Chris Streveler is the most accurate quarterback in the CFL, or suggest that he has the best arm in the CFL, or that, as a passer, he's in the same league as Zach Collaros. That being said, I thought the passing that we saw from him on Saturday was some of the best we've ever seen. He had a couple of really nice passes to the wide side of the field. We've seen him one-hop those before. That was not the case on Saturday. He was hitting guys in the hands. There was authority behind and velocity behind some of those throws. And I thought he did a good job of standing in the pocket on a few cases where his first read wasn't available, maybe his second read wasn't available. He went through his progressions. He didn't merely bail out. And for Streveler, a guy who is now in his 30s and has been a 6-7 year pro, if he wants to prolong his career, right, beyond just being the gadget guy or the short yardage guy, That is what we need to see, right? And that's what he needs to prove he can do is go through those progressions. I think you'd be silly as a team to pigeonhole him into the pocket passer role because that's not him. But he has to show that he can at least do that to some extent, right? Helping keep defenses honest and helping limit some of those hits. The last time we saw him start a game was last season. I think it was week 5 when Ottawa came to town. And to his credit, he won the game. That being said, when he was finished that game, he was as beat up and bruised and bloodied as any player I think I've seen post-game. He took hellacious shot after hellacious shot. It was obvious that play style got him through a game, but it wasn't sustainable to any level. So when he inevitably starts, and I believe he will in week 2, not confirmed, but I'd imagine barring a miracle, he will be the starter in week 2 when the Bombers open their regular season against BC. For his sake, I hope that he can obviously make plays with his legs, but he can stand in the pocket and make some nice throws too to limit those hits and that wear and tear.
Yeah, so week 1 or week 2 with Strev and then beyond with Zach. Big questions about this receiving core. Kenny Lawler's gone. Drew Olatarski's gone. It was a very reliable target. And to be honest, John, it's been a little strange kind of following all of the coverage from camp. Like when Dylan Mitchell was signed, I kind of figured that he would be a big part of this offense. He hasn't really even been with the starters. And the guy that we thought was maybe going to make a big impact, Jared Stearns, sort of a quiet day. Look, just observations on the battles at the receiver position, and what can we take away from Saturday's game?
It's a great question, Huss. I mean, Myron Mitchell seems to be the favorite guy there with the coaching staff. I mean, we'll note Nick Dembski and Dalton Schoen again didn't play. So it's not like come the regular season, this is what the receiving core will look like. But Carrick Wheatfall, a guy who had a brilliant debut last season and then did nothing after that, he made a really nice catch and run at one point, kind of dodging a guy from the side and kind of doing like a side hurdle over to pick up some yak yards. You had Reggie White Jr. making a couple kind of timing routes or timing plays underneath, yards after the catch, that kind of thing. Myron Mitchell, the underneath stuff, made the one really nice grab where he went up between 2 defenders, shook him off, turned up field for, again, yards after the catch. Again, everything very underneath for the Bombers. I would have liked to see the quarterbacks air it out a little bit more, even if just to assess some of those receivers. But I also appreciate that for quarterbacks, you do not want to take those extra hits in the preseason. And every second you hold on to the ball, the chances of taking a big hit are going up dramatically. Jalen Hall, I thought, made some plays. But you're right, the 2 veterans there, Jareth Stearns and Dylan Mitchell, only 1 catch apiece. And Mitchell, let's remember, he's making $150,000 this year. He's the 3rd highest paid receiver on this Winnipeg Blue Bombers team. And right now, he's not in the starting lineup. And further to that, he was on the field in the 4th quarter. Now, it's possible the Bombers did that just to kind of give Terry Wilson at least 1 veteran, right, and not just throw him in with the receiving corps full of rookies as you look to assess what he's able to do in year 2. Same thing with Chase Artopius, the rookie out of Tennessee, Chattanooga. Jareth Stearns, it should be noted, was also on the field in the 4th quarter. To me, the little bit of camp I've been there for, I thought Jareth Stearns looked sensational. I think he's the exact type of player Winnipeg needs in the secondary as a shifty, kind of underneath second down guy, right? They need to replace Drew Olatarski as a guy who can help move the chains on second down, make some of those tough catches. Stearns is not as big as Wolotarski, but I think he's got a similar skill set in that regard, only I think he's a lot more dangerous than Wolotarski was after the catch. So I was high on Stearns, but Dylan Mitchell has not flashed during camp, and he did not flash in that preseason game. Yes, he drew an illegal contact or a pass interference penalty on the interception that was negated, but he was only targeted twice and only had 1 catch. So yes, he made a lot of money in free agency. I believe some of that was up front. If the Bombers cut him, they're not going to get that money back. They can get the rest back. They can't get the signing bonus back. But certainly interesting. That is a position I'll be watching like a hawk for sure come the next preseason game.
Yeah, and I guess we'll see that second preseason game. Like when it comes to things like the receivers, do you think that we'll be a lot closer to seeing what the starting lineup, or will this be another evaluation game? And then it'll be a matter of practicing for an extra week before we actually see the guys in live game action as a team that we'll see in week 2.
Well, typically, your home game is the one where you play all your vets, because when you go on the road, and the Bombers are going on the road for their second preseason game, it's expensive, right, to travel a bunch of guys who aren't necessarily going to play, especially if you do want to use that as your assessment game. So traditionally, typically what we see in preseason is your veterans play at home, and then you give them a break when you go on the road. And so I would actually expect to see a younger lineup this week when the Bombers play Friday night in Regina. The Riders actually sent a pretty veteran-laden group, so they might be doing the same in reverse. That might be because they play the opening game of the regular season, and rather than playing your vets on a Friday preseason game and then having the season start, 6-7 days later, and kind of a short turnaround for your vets, maybe they just kind of want to build in an extra week. So interestingly, we got two quite veteran-laden rosters in Winnipeg. We might see the opposite in Regina. I'm obviously speculating, but that would make sense to me. If that's the case, then that is a golden opportunity, in my opinion, for these receivers to prove that they should, in some cases, be in the starting lineup, and in other cases, they should be on the roster, be it as a backup on the active or be it as the next guy up off practice roster, right? Carrick Wheatfall's got some nice size that you like. Reggie White Jr. brings some experience, right? Quentin Cooley, a guy who we haven't talked about yet, but actually led the game in receiving yardage. Only 36 yards. It's not a ton, but he had some really nice plays in the open field out of his spot in the backfield. And with Peyton Logan out, right, injured, unlikely to play for the start of the season, that's a spot that's potentially open. So that is, I think, definitely a spot the Bombers are looking to assess, and there will be some tough decisions for sure have to be made.
Now, John, just before we move to the defensive side of the football, we live in a fantasy football society, so we're always talking about the guys that are making the plays and throwing the football and catching the football. Nothing happens if you can't block for your quarterback. Eric Lofton's been out at right tackle for most of camp. Liam Dobson's gone. How are things shaking out on the offensive line right now, and who helped their cause on the weekend?
Well, after the game, I asked Zach, it didn't look like he got touched out there. And he kind of gave me a weird look, and he kind of said something kind of short and kind of dismissive. And I thought that was interesting. So I went back, and should be noted, preseason, like typically in the press box during the regular season, you get to see the plays live, and then you can turn your head at the TV and you see it live on TSN, and then you see it again once or twice on replay. So you can see each play 2, 3, 4 times. Preseason, because the game wasn't televised, all we had was the in-stadium feed. So if the play got shown on replay, you sometimes saw it once, sometimes you didn't. So it was harder relative to your normal broadcasted game to keep up with some of those details. So I actually went back and watched this morning on CFL Plus that first half again, and lo and behold, Zach got hit the first 3 times he threw the ball. Now, the third time was Malik Carney, defensive end, jumped offside. Stanley Bryant didn't get there in time. That's understandable for an offside. But Tuieli got his lunch eaten on a bull rush from an interior rusher, Saskatchewan. And on a later series, this was not a time that Zach got hit, but Kendall Randolph got beaten almost cleanly on a spin move. And that was when Zach had to dodge a guy, step up in the pocket, and threw a really nice crossing route to Jalen Hall that went for a first down. So there was some good on the offensive line, but there was some bad. Tuieli got the first crack at the left guard spot. I did not think he played super well. He later shifted to center, got beaten on another bull rush. For a guy who has been with this team on and off since 2019, I think by this point you'd like to see a little more progression from him. Ethan Vibert, the team's third-round pick, I think came as billed. He's struggling in pass pro, as most rookie offensive linemen do, but he can move some people in the run game. Gabe Wallace, I thought, looked fine. Going into year 2, Kyle Walters has said they have very high plans for him. But that said, he wasn't the first or second guy who got the crack at left guard. The second guy up was Micah Vanterpool, the American, who I thought played well. So I would like to see more from the Canadians. This team does have the ratio flexibility to play 3 Americans. That being said, doing that would limit the racial flexibility elsewhere, right? Last year, this team was regularly starting 8, 9, sometimes even 10 Canadians. They're not going to be able to do that this year. And so if you have 3 Canadians on the O-line, you've got a little bit of flexibility. You only got 2. Now you're kind of locked into that. And that can be tricky if injuries come up. So that's a spot I'm going to be watching again very closely for the preseason game in Regina. And if the team doesn't send all those vets, right? If Chris Kolinkowski doesn't get the start at center, if Patty Neufeld doesn't get the start at right guard, if Stanley Bryant doesn't get the start at left tackle, then we're going to get more reps, right? More opportunities to see these young guys. So I didn't think it was a disastrous performance from the offensive line, but it didn't blow me away by any stretch of the imagination either. I want to see more from that group.
Sounds like it didn't blow away Zach either, and he'll be a very important influence when it comes to, I'm sure, the guys playing in front of him. Defensively, it was funny. I saw Brandon Alexander at the Taste of the Bombers event on Thursday, but it's interesting seeing him in a new role. He's been sort of synonymous with defense for a long time now, helping out in other ways with the organization. You mentioned that battle for his spot. Looks like it's going to be Jamal Parker or rookie Cam Allen. Thoughts on there and maybe some of the other positional battles on defense right now that are percolating as we go into the final preseason game, John?
Yeah, I was watching the safety battle really closely, partly because that is one that you can't really watch back on television because, of course, the camera doesn't have the safety in it. The safety is standing too far back. So live, I was watching that one like a hawk because you can't go back and do that. I thought Jamal Parker looked the part, right? He's a veteran. Now, he plays the complete opposite way. Like, he could not be more of a different player than Brandon Alexander. Brandon Alexander is your physical, thumping, old-school safety, whereas Jamal Parker is your true cover guy, right? He's smooth, he's undersized, he's fast. And I spoke to Jamal Parker in the locker room after the game, and I said, would it be fair to characterize it? He just laughs. He's like, yeah, we play the game totally different ways. But he said it's also been really nice to hear from Brandon Alexander and get coached up by the guy he's looking to replace in that role. And he also said he's not afraid to get his nose dirty. He said, and for the record, Jamal Parker, I think he's listed at 5'8". I think he's actually maybe a smidge below that. Not the shortest guy on the team, but one of them. And he said, look, I'm used to, in professional football, being one of the shortest guys out there. So that's not new to me. I'm still happy to get in there and make tackles. And the Riders didn't really test him. Like, they didn't really push the ball down the field for the first, I would say, 20-some minutes of the game he was in. So he was not on the stat sheet, though that's not necessarily a bad thing when you're the starting safety. And then Cam Allen came in, produced, stand out, played the rest of the game. He's much more of a prototypical safety build, 6'1" around there, close to 200 pounds. Immediately got an interception off Jake Maier. I will say it looked like the receiver kind of stumbled. That pick is probably more of a criticism for Jake Maier than it was necessarily an amazing play by Cam Allen. That being said, he still made the pick, which is what you're supposed to do, and the ball hits you in the chest. Made a nice little return. And then just a couple of drives later, he had a really nice diving pass breakup on a deep shot for Tommy Neal. Now, Tommy Neal is your kind of traditional big-bodied Canadian slot back. Not necessarily the guy who you want to see behind your safety, but it was nice to see Cam Allen showing that he has that recovery speed, that he can get back and make some of those plays and time his jump perfectly, which he did. So to me, I think that the likely starter will be Jamal Parker, a guy who's been in this organization for 3 years. But I think you have to find a way to get Cam Allen on the roster. Winnipeg loves to rotate in extra DBs, and he's a guy who's got the size to play special teams as well. So he might have to start the year on practice roster just with how things shake out, but I wouldn't be surprised, even if Jamal Parker is the starter at safety, if we see a lot of Cam Allen back there as well in 2025.
Hey, how did Vaughters look? He was sort of one of the, there wasn't a ton of big name acquisitions in the offseason, but he's a guy they're looking for big things alongside Willie J on that defensive line.
Yeah, the one play he flashed, unfortunately for him, was the one that was negated, right? It was a pretty clear incomplete pass when Willie Jefferson batted down a Trevor Harris ball. Well, James Vaughters did what you're supposed to do, and the whistle doesn't blow. He picked it up and he ran it for a touchdown. I thought for an edge rusher in his 30s, he looked pretty fleet of foot running for that score. It didn't end up counting, which was the rightful call. I don't know why the whistle wasn't blown in the first place. But Mike O'Shea, after the game and today from his immediate availability from practice, touted that as a perfect example of what you want to see in terms of effort and in terms of game awareness, right? Hey, the whistle didn't go. The ball's on the turf. I'm gonna pick it up and I'm gonna sprint as fast as I can, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? That's what you're supposed to be programmed to do anyway, as a professional football player. And so I thought it was nice that he did that. I don't think he had a tremendous amount of opportunity to do a lot of pass rushing in that game. He didn't play for a tremendous amount of it. And Trevor Harris gets the ball out very quickly all the time, did so again in this preseason game. But I do think that he's going to be an upgrade at that spot opposite Willie Jefferson. It was also interesting to see, last year, Jordan Younger, anytime it was second and long, he basically, with very few exceptions, had 3 down linemen, dropped 9. We actually saw a little bit of 4 and 8 in this preseason game. So I'm interested to see if that might be more common, because I think the best thing that you can do to free up Willie J and free up James Vaughters is to have 4 rushers, right? It's a lot easier to double team those guys, make it difficult for them when you only rush 3. When you rush 4, at least one of them is going to be one-on-one.
John, always great having you on the program. As we get closer to kickoff, fill people in on what you and the 3 down team have coming. And when are you cooking up some hot takes and preseason predictions before kickoff?
Well, we're going to have, we obviously have reaction to all the games from all the teams' perspectives. We're going to have our first power rankings out a week today. And that week, we will also have some preseason predictions, as you laid out, for MOP picks, MOC picks, standings. I will say to tease it, going into the preseason, I was going to pick Saskatchewan to finish first in the West. With the injuries they've had along the interior of the offensive line, 3 big guys going down, I'm tempted to take Winnipeg again, but I haven't yet made up my mind. I'll have to figure that out for next week.
Appreciate you, buddy. Well, let's do this again soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Huss, anytime.
Folks, get over to 3downnation.com. There's tons of content there, but Bomber fans are going to want to be looking at 14 thoughts on the Bombers' preseason win over Saskatchewan by our guy, John Hodge. Appreciate John jumping on with us today. Of course, Princess Auto Stadium was the place to be on the weekends. The Bombers got back on the field, and it will be the place to be Saturday afternoon, 1 p.m., the Desiree Scott celebration and retirement game for Canada's women's national team. Go to our website to enter to win tickets. There's a link in the description to buy tickets for the game. Make sure you're there. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers, Winnipeg Sports Talk, and so much of our Winnipeg supports sports community. And hey, Princess Auto synonymous with Winnipeg. It founded here, headquartered here, and now coast to coast. But with 3 locations to serve you, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and out in Brandon, where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the project on your list or start something new is waiting for you at Princess Auto. And of course, you can always shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. Well, now that we're getting this beautiful weather, it's time to get on the golf course. It's also time to get onto the water. I know fishing season's underway. And if you are big into fishing, or maybe want to get into it with some experts to help you around, get some big ones on your line, and enjoy a few days at a true paradise of Manitoba, you got to check out Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. World-class fishing, even more world-class hospitality from the Aikens team and the Turan family, and the only fly-in fishing lodge where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg. Go to aikenslake.com for more information on options and availability for the 2025 fishing season, and check out all of their socials for more of the Aikens experience online at Aikens Lake. And hey, weddings are coming up, folks. Grads, F Apparels will help you look good for the turn of the seasons, and of course, wedding season as well. F Apparel is the go-to spot for custom men's clothing at great prices, just celebrating their 15th anniversary. Head on down there for custom suits, chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, the best selection of menswear accessories around, and a couple promos right now. Of course, whenever you're in a wedding, talk to the guys at F about a special discount for the wedding party when you get your suits at F Apparel. If you have a 2025 grad, free shirt and tie with the purchase of any suit for 2025 grads. 190 Smith Street downtown. F, that's EPH Apparel online for more information, or to make an appointment. All right, let's get Mike in here for a Monday chat. Stanley Cup playoffs, Jets off season, and more. This segment is brought to you by your Prairie Toyota dealers. I want to remind you to get in and go with the Toyota Tundra. Quality that it means it has the strength to take on any challenge, off-road or hauling a heavy load, and backed by the peace of mind knowing it's a Toyota. So take the road less traveled in comfort, room for teammates, friends, and gear. And can we talk about how good this truck looks? Everywhere it goes, the Toyota Tundra is turning heads. From $154 weekly for 60 months at 5.19% APR with $66.99 down, hybrid available. Visit shoptoyota.ca. Let's get Mike McIntyre in here. Mike, what's going on? How was your weekend?
It was a great weekend. Huss, a little weird to not have covering hockey on the menu. The first weekend since, I don't know, early September last year, I guess, that there hasn't been a Jets game, whether it's preseason, regular season, playoff. That doesn't mean I tuned out hockey entirely. I don't know. I suspect there's some fans out there, Huss, probably some Jets fans who are in mourning. And once the Jets were eliminated, probably said, okay, that's it. I'm done. I will not watch another second of these playoffs. It's too painful or whatever. I'm a journalist. I cover hockey, so I obviously have an interest in seeing how this plays out. And must say, I feel like we peaked in the first round this year in the Stanley. We were blessed with maybe the best first round we've ever had. And the second round was pretty good too, but my goodness, this third round is not exactly playing out. I know one of the series, Dallas-Edmonton, is just 2-1, but it feels almost inevitable watching the Oilers the way they're playing right now. And the way the Stars are playing, I'm sure some Jets fans are saying, where was that Dallas team a round ago? Where was that Jake Ottinger, who is the second best goalie on the ice to Stuart Skinner of all people? And my goodness, Paul Maurice and the Florida Panthers, they look absolutely inevitable, unstoppable. And I don't know about you, Huss, sure seems like we're headed for a Stanley Cup rematch, probably starting in a week or so from now.
It's funny. I see T-Will. Mike is talking directly to me right now. Elias McCracken, it is painful to watch the Oil play the Stars right now. I will say, I mean, as disappointed as I was, I mean, I know you're Big J Journo. You cheer for stories, not teams, yes. So you need to get away from it. I will own it. Like, watching, I went out a couple times last week to watch the Oiler game and once to watch the Panthers. And I will say there was something freeing about not having the intense stress involved of watching your own team. But that's what you want to be doing. Listen, the stress for the Carolina Hurricanes right now, coming into tonight, on the verge of 4 straight sweeps in the conference finals, Mike. And to be honest, like, I rarely use this word, but they are getting emasculated by the Florida Panthers. I mean, it is a men versus boys feeling to what's going on right now there. And they're beating them on the scoreboard. They're beating them in the scrums afterwards. I mean, it's just depressing, honestly. And I can't imagine what it's like being a Carolina fan, or frankly, one of those guys in the locker room right now, knowing how well they played, what they've accomplished all season long, and now just running into a brick wall. Not just a brick wall, but a brick wall that'll give you a shot on the way back from not getting through it.
Yeah, it's got to be tough to swallow for a coach like Rod Brindamore, who's kind of an alpha male, right? Like, he's a guy who what's unfolding on the ice, like, I got to think Rod the Bod wishes he could lace the skates up himself and get out there and do something about it, because this has to be, you talk about being emasculated, this must just be an absolute gut punch for him. You want to talk about the Jets fan base, kind of thinking about the what ifs and how painful it is. How about Leafs Nation, who had these Florida Panthers not only down 2-0, but they had them down 2 goals, not once, at 2-0, but twice at 3-1 in game 3. And, you watch now how Carolina's not even putting up really any kind of fight at all. And it's always interesting to me, like how the narrative maybe changes in the immediate aftermath of a playoff exit. And once you see how the next round or two play out, the Leafs obviously, there's all this talk of having to blow things up, and they obviously didn't bring Brendan Shanahan back. There's a case to be made that Toronto was the second best team in the East, and if not for maybe a few bounces here or there or whatever, that this could be them. But that's why they're the champs, the Florida Panthers. Like they've developed this uncanny ability to withstand some adversity, and to bring this home to the Jets. Like that is what Winnipeg, that's what's next for the Jets. That's what they have to find. They have to find that level, that gear that a team like Florida has developed. And there's no guarantee they find it. Like everybody wants to find it. The other 31 teams are saying that's what we need to do. But it does go to show, like these Panthers, they had some setbacks, right? They were the President's Trophy winners a few years ago, and then they had a big upset in the playoffs, and like and that's when they brought Paul Maurice in. And so like these guys have learned, I guess, how to lose and how to use that to make sure it doesn't happen again. And it's interesting here in Winnipeg, we've often heard the Jets talk about, I think when they came back in 2011, it was like they want to model themselves after the Blackhawks. Then it was, okay, they want to model themselves after the Predators. What's the gold standard right now? If you're the Winnipeg Jets and Kevin Shovel, you want to be the Panthers. And there's a lot of connections, of course, between the Jets and the Panthers. So it is impressive to see the way that they have responded in these playoffs. And if there's an Oiler-Panther rematch in the making, sign me up. Like that was a great series last year. Went 7. You've got obviously McDavid and Draisaitl and Canada. Like there's some great storylines there. So I think that's potentially where we're headed here. Of course, the Stars, they're not down and out yet. They certainly didn't look like they had a lot of chances yesterday, but the final score was not very flattering. The Oilers, like again, it seems like the Oilers now have tapped into that, maybe because of how last year played out and how previous years, like they now have that level, that gear, that hidden ingredient that every team wants to get, but not everybody is able to.
Mike, while we're talking about the Panthers here for a minute, let me hit you with something I was talking about with Remis earlier on. Well, I'll preface it. I did have I don't want anyone to think that I'm starting to bang the drum that like the Jets would seriously be in for Sam Bennett, because as we know, when it comes to unrestricted free agents that everybody wants, Winnipeg's in a tough battle. But someone texted me on the weekend and said, hey, what do you think the chances are that Sam Bennett would be the Jets 2C next year? And I said, probably 0.0%, maybe less. But he could potentially be going to unrestricted free agency. Now, he might take a relatively team-friendly deal to stay within the Panthers organization. Wouldn't blame him at all for that. He'll be getting a nice raise from 4.4.
Right.
But with a relatively small free agent class and the impact that Sam Bennett has had and the way the Florida Panthers play, the success that they've had, what do you if he was to sign with another team, if he was to leave for the money, how big of a check do you think is waiting for Sam Bennett on the unrestricted market July 1st?
Well, I think it's probably starting in double digits. Like
for a guy that has 55 points.
It's incredible. And you're right. I mean, because he's the prototypical playoff performer. Like he's the guy who he's very solid, obviously, in the regular season, but he has another level in the playoffs. And, he's a guy that teams look at and say, that's the kind of player we need to put us over the top. And so there's no question 31 other teams would likely be saying, yeah, we want a piece of that action. And that's going to create probably a bidding war. And as you say, Huss, the lack of other, a wealth of other big names out there, that's going to drive the price up even more. And, I think when you're talking like a team like Winnipeg, while he certainly would check off some significant boxes, when you're talking about the money that's going to be thrown around and what that money looks like in different markets, this is where the whole like tax-free state situation comes into play. And it's why Florida, I would not count the Florida Panthers out. They may, for cap reasons, they may not be able to match the actual dollars that other teams may be willing to throw at Bennett, but his money, his salary is going to go a little further in a state like Florida than it would in some other markets. And then there's just the devil, and, obviously what he's built and what the Panthers have built down there. So, yeah, I'm with you, Huss. Like, if you want to set the over-under at 0.0%, I'll take the under on Sam Bennett. As nice as it would be to kind of contemplate and as good of a fit as he'd likely be.
But to your point, Mike, like especially if Mitch Marner walks.
Yeah.
What would the Leafs be willing to take Sam Bennett from potentially a back-to-back Cup champion into their lineup, considering what it takes to beat the Florida Panthers? I'm not sure that there's a limit.
No, exactly. I agree with you 100%. And they might not stop at Bennett. They might also want to bring Brad Marchand over to the center of the hockey universe as well. Because there's another guy. He's having a really good playoff. He's a proven winner.
But didn't they try to get him at the deadline and he said no?
Did. Yeah. So, I mean, he'll have his pick. But he also spoke. Now, maybe this is all just, gamesmanship. He spoke glowingly of the Leafs. He spoke about being a Leafs fan. He kind of felt sorry for them.
Did you buy all that?
No, that was trolling.
They're getting trolled so badly. Maurice is involved in it too.
It's a master. Yeah.
Listen, I thank God I am not a Leaf fan right now, because as disappointing and humiliating as the Game 5 and Game 7 waxings on home ice, the salt in the wounds of these guys glazing the Leafs at every opportunity is adding insult to injury from where I'm sitting.
This is the new, what was it, a couple of years ago when the Leafs got eliminated? Remember the whole, we got more respect in the handshake line, and that became kind of the motto or the theme that, like, the opponent who just ended our season, they respected us a little more this time around. This is the new respect in the handshake line. You're right. It's kind of funny to watch. Not so funny if you're a Leafs fan. Hey, I want to just bring this back to the Jets for a second, Huss. So watching Edmonton, Dallas, like, and I don't know, I don't know if this makes it easier for Jets fans to swallow how last round played out, or maybe it's more difficult. But as I'm watching the Oilers seemingly find a whole other gear here now, and all of a sudden, like, all the arguments against the Oilers are being put to bed, right? Their goaltending sucks. Well, Stuart Skinner has been the best goalie in this series. He had one rough outing, obviously, but they can't defend. Well, that's been put to rest. They have no depth scoring. They're just a two-horse team. Well, they're getting depth contributions all over the lineup. What would if the Jets had managed to win Game 6 in overtime, force a Game 7 against the Stars, and let's say they win that, we know they wouldn't have had Josh Morrissey for it. We also know now they wouldn't have had Josh Morrissey for the rest of the playoffs. He was done because of that injury that he suffered. You can always play hindsight and what if and all that, but the Jets without Josh Morrissey against the Oilers playing the way the Oilers are playing, I don't think that was going to turn out very well for Winnipeg. Do you?
Well, Neil Pionk owns Connor McDavid.
He does.
So, I mean,
he'd have to play 40 minutes a game, though, to
he might be ready to go. Listen, you're right. I mean, the loss of Morrissey would have been a major, major issue. But, I mean, listen, this sort of stuff happens all the time. Yeah. Guys get out, other guys step up.
Connor Hellebuck would have had to steal.
I was just about to go there right now. I mean, if Connor Hellebuck was the Connor Hellebuck that we've seen him play at his best, but listen, Stuart Skinner has been doing that. Like the turnaround for Skinner, of course I do a show every day in Edmonton with Dusty, and he Skinner was sort of like how fans just decide they're going to pick on someone and they are going to hammer him and they are putting their flag in the ground like this guy sucks.
He was Logan Stanley?
It was Logan Stanley, and then when Stanley didn't play, like despite being here for 4 years, Appleton somehow became that guy in the last couple months where all of a sudden everyone can't stand that guy. Stuart Skinner has been that guy in Edmonton. And there are fans right now that don't know how to react because he's given up 1 goal in his last 4 wins.
Yeah.
Now, did he have a couple ugly games at the start of the playoffs? Absolutely. I'm not here saying that Stuart Skinner is Hellebuck or Ottinger, but I'll tell you what, he won that game for them yesterday.
Yeah, he did.
Like, if he doesn't stand on his head the way he did in the second period, they don't run away with it. You look, if you didn't watch the game, like, 6-1, big deal.
Dallas had 21 shots in the second period.
Exactly. So, and now these guys that have been planting their flags in the ground, hating on Skinner, are like, okay, well, geez, should I be happy my team is on the verge of going back to the Cup final? Just own some bad takes? Hey, whatever, it happens. But listen, I think the Oilers are exactly what you want. And listen, we'll hope that Winnipeg will do this from falling just short last year, can learn from those lessons and take that next step. They certainly do seem to be a more complete team. It's not just all about McDavid, although he was brilliant yesterday, and Draisaitl. Everyone's getting into it. And listen, they're matching the Dallas Stars and frankly being better than them in just about every category right now. And this could make for a short series. I mean, if they can win this game, I originally picked Oilers in 6. If they can win tomorrow and go in with Dallas on the ropes, it wouldn't surprise me to see that one end in 5. And I think it'll be important for Edmonton to get this done as short as possible because it sure looks like Florida is going to be very well rested because they probably finished the job tonight.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if the NHL budges off what I believe was a pretty firm timeline of when the Stanley Cup final was going to start. And there's strategic reasons for it, certain nights of the week, and obviously counter programming for when the NBA final, things like that. But if both of these series end up being extremely short, is the NHL going to just let both these teams sit around and twiddle their thumbs for like a week before they get going kind of towards the end of next week? I'd find that hard to believe. You'd think they'd want to move things up, but we'll see. I mean, yeah, to me, this game tomorrow for Dallas, like if they go down 3-1, that's probably it. I think that series is done. I guess Carolina could break their 15-game conference losing streak and maybe sneak one out here. Carolina could, but that series is over. So yeah, not a whole lot of drama so far in the third round in what's been a pretty good playoff series. In fact, you could argue, Huss, the most exciting hockey over the last 5 or 6 days actually occurred overseas when it comes to the World Championships, with some Jets connections, of course. How about Nikolai Ehlers and the Danes with one of the greatest upsets we've probably seen in quite some time, especially with who's on that Canadian team. Like there's Hall of Famers, like tons of future Hall of Famers on that Canadian team. Nikolai Ehlers, the lone NHL player on Denmark and they beat Canada, and maybe they celebrated a little too hard, Huss, since they got annihilated by Nino Niederreiter and the Swiss 2 days later.
Yeah, and USA winning their first World Championship gold medal in forever, and that
Since
was
the
a very
30s?
Sorry?
Since the 30s? Did I read
it's
that?
almost
right?
100 years. I think it was 92 or something like that.
Yeah.
So, hey, good on them. The U.S. has always kind of approached the World Championships a little differently than Canada has.
They go real young.
Yeah, they always do. But hey, listen, I mean, they got the gold medal, and yeah, I mean, listen, that's a shocking a loss, and you know the timing of it, Mike. We had just finished the show, and there was like 5 minutes left in the game.
Right.
So we finished up. I turned it on, saw Ehlers score the goal, and I mean the goal over Binnington. I did joke. I mean, listen, if Canada was going to lose, let it be with Jordan Binnington blowing another late lead in the
With
third
Nikolai
period.
Ehlers on the ice. Like he's gonna that's a tough pill to swallow. For
Yeah,
sure.
listen, I don't want to like throw the passport out or anything like that, but there was a little bit of a silver lining, I guess, for Jet fans that aren't particularly fond of Jordan Binnington. Although I did hold my nose and cheer for him in Boston, and he got us some big saves in OT and got that Four Nations Cup. So that still does count for something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, listen, that World Champ, we're going to hopefully hook up with Dan. And Dan and Kevin were calling that
They
game.
were.
It truly was incredible. And, you know, for Ehlers and for the Danes to be able to do that on home ice, I mean, what a moment. But I did feel for Sid and for Fleury. There was a big opportunity for Canada and those guys in particular to get into a very special group.
Yep.
That didn't happen right now. But again, that's why they play the games. And, you know, unless it's a full best on best, you know what? Sometimes you're here for great stories like that.
Pretty good one.
Speaking of Ehlers,
Yeah.
it was so funny. I mean, and again, you know, whatever. Social media is what it is. I mean, there's all sorts of takes, and some of them are good, some of them are out there. But like, I don't really think that what happened in the World Championships or that win or anything would have anything to do with his decision moving forward. To me, this is just a great story for Nick and his country, and he's there. But, you know, as we sit here just about a month out from July 1st, where are you at right now on what it'll take to keep Nikolai Ehlers here and the likelihood of that actually happening before hitting the free agent streets?
Yeah, well, you and I haven't had a chance to chat on this program since Kevin Cheveldayoff did his
Exactly.
year-end last week. And I'm sure Jets fans were heartened to hear, you know, the GM of the Jets say we're going to put our best foot forward to make him, and I'm paraphrasing here, but make him a Jet for life. You know, that should put any notion to bed that the Jets will be the ones to say, thanks, but no thanks. We're ready to move on. And they may be doing that with some other free agents. Like, I don't know about you, Huss. I certainly took Kevin Cheveldayoff's comments regarding someone like Mason Appleton, where he, as soon as Appleton was brought up, kind of pivoted immediately to talking about pro scouting meetings coming up, which are happening, I believe, this week. The Jets are having them. And the idea of younger players in the organization ready. Like it wasn't lost on me that he kind of pivoted right away to talking about.
Yeah, I don't know whether he did that on purpose at all, but I know you mentioned that and then we played it here and I'm like, okay, I could kind of see how you could put two and two together.
Yeah.
Listen, here's the thing with Appleton. I think the organization really appreciates him and what he's done. Listen, as much as he was taking some heat in the last couple months, you know, he quietly has helped that line be incredibly effective. They were first place in the league this year with him playing a big role. Now, listen, I get it. People have issues with, oh, look at how much that guy is getting as opposed to like Nikolai Ehlers. I mean, it's the role and where they're put and who they're playing with. I mean, that is what it is. But we heard rumors earlier on this season that they were working on an extension with Mason Appleton. That didn't happen. In my opinion, that was a line of thinking when they didn't think that maybe an extension with Alex Iafallo was in the cards.
Right.
To me, everything changed significantly when they got
Agreed.
Iafallo on the cards because listen, as this moves forward, you're going to have to bring in some ELC guys. I mean, there will be some change in the roster.
Nemestikov too, by the way. They extended Nemestikov.
Yeah, Vlad being a center and maybe being as versatile as he is, I probably didn't. But admit, this is just my opinion. When the Iafallo ink was dry, that probably made it a lot more difficult for Mason Appleton to come back, regardless of how the playoffs went.
Agreed.
Just from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, and so we'll see how that plays out. Mason Appleton, even I took some of his comments when he spoke to us last week. No, I wouldn't describe it as frustration. There almost just seemed like he was resigned to probably where his stock is in this line. I mean, he talked about the other guy and FOMO. He talked about FOMO, fear of missing out. That's not what he's feeling, but he has seen what's happened. Those other guys get re-signed. He knows there's kind of a pecking order and there's decisions that have to be made. So we'll see how Appleton plays out. I do not expect Mason Appleton to be re-signed by the Jets, but that could always change.
He probably barely slept since the open net in Game 6 too.
Oh, yeah,
that was the other thing coming up. And you feel for him. I mean, you could tell he was. I believe his word was haunted. He's used by that. And listen, that is a tough way. I'll always respect what he brought to the team, but I'm sort of with you. I do think that when you're looking at where this roster is going to change a little bit, that spot in particular, because as I said, we know that Alex Iafallo could probably jump on that line, play a little bit bigger of a role than where he was on the fourth line for a good period of time, and have a similar positive impact and maybe more so.
Well, and then if you're talking about backfilling, we know like Nikita Chibrikov looked really good in his brief audition, and we would have seen a lot more, I think, of Chibrikov this year. But then he suffered a season-ending injury. Mm-hmm. Parker Ford, there's another guy, a young guy on an ELC. Parker Ford looked really good. And then he got hurt, a season ender as well. So at some point, and of course that we're not even talking about the likes of Lambert. Now these are different roles potentially, but Lambert and Braden Yeager. And so, at some point you got to get a little cheaper. You got to get a little younger, especially as other deals come up. They're going to need money for Sandberg. They're going to need money for Velarde. They have things like, and we just heard from them last week about, like, not that it would be for this coming season, but Adam Lowry is going to need a new deal. Kyle Connor is going to need a new deal. And if that's with the Jets, that's going to be a big number there. So, the Appleton thing wouldn't surprise me. Now, Ehlers, obviously, we know the Jets would like Nikolai Ehlers back. Kevin Cheveldayoff made that crystal clear. I'm still very much leaning towards the idea that he's going to test free agency. And, I think the fact that it's a thinner crop than usual, Huss, combined with the fact that he just had a really good playoff, certainly the second round against the Stars, and even what happened on the World Championship stage, like that doesn't hurt. That doesn't hurt his cause when it comes to negotiating a new deal. He wants to be seen as a guy that can elevate those around him, that can lift his teammates, that can carry a line, potentially carry a team. And all of that would translate into a good number. Now, that being said, I don't believe that it's just going to come down to dollars and cents if he leaves the Jets. It's not going to be a case where, the Jets just got outbid. They couldn't pay that money. I mean, the final number, whatever his next deal looks like, maybe there's a valid argument that that's a number the Jets wouldn't be comfortable matching. That being said, I think it has more to do from Ehlers' perspective with opportunity. And as long as Gabe Velarde is on this roster, Nikolai Ehlers' path likely to being a full-time first-line player at 5-on-5 is sort of blocked. We know he obviously played on the top power play unit this year and was very effective. It was the top power play unit in the league. He was a big part of that. But I think he wants bigger opportunity when it comes to even strength play.
Is that just kind of you thinking? Because I mean, like, we have had this conversation before, and I was talking about something with Murat, and the one thing that I'll say, he's certainly never said that. We've never heard throughout his entire thing. Like, and it would, if there was one player, it would be justified maybe for the agent to throw it. Hey, you know what? Like, that's never come from there. So I mean, I guess you could logically think that maybe you would think that, but for some guys, maybe they want to be in a position that they're comfortable in a team they think they can win with more than that. I guess I just bring that up because to Nick's credit, he has never been a squeaky wheel ever during his time here in Winnipeg.
And you could make the argument that ship's kind of sailed now. Like all of that, those top line minutes, which presumably would lead to more offensive production, which would translate into a bigger number on his deal. When he signs his next deal on July 1st or sooner, if it's with the Jets, presumably it's going to be a long-term deal. And at that point, you're getting your money. Like you're now not playing for your next contract. Your contract is what it is. So you're right to your point. The bigger role probably would have liked, if that's an issue, and if he feels like, because what's his career high? 64 points, I think, in the regular season, 65. And a big chunk of that is because he's had some issues with staying healthy for full seasons. But we look at Nikolai Ehlers and you say, that's not a 64, 65 point player. Like that's a guy who should be able to put up 82, like a point a game player. So the idea that, and that's why it'll be interesting to see what his next contract looks like. How much does his ceiling as a point producer to date in his career, how much does that hinder what his next deal looks like? Like, is there a team out there? And to go back to your earlier question about Sam Bennett, we expect it's probably not going to be a factor. Sam Bennett, a guy who, can you count on him for much more than 55 points? But there's probably a team or many teams that are going to be lining up to pay him $10 million plus. I'm not saying Nikolai Ehlers is going to have the same kind of market. Obviously, very, very different players, but points tend to lead to dollar signs on your deal, right? And Nikolai Ehlers, he's never been a huge point producer.
Well, and he's certainly, I mean, if you break it down though, and his effectiveness for ice time or his point production per minute on the ice, I mean, he actually is right up there. And certainly if it comes to unrestricted free agency, those numbers will be valuable for the Ehlers agents to throw out. Before we go, I'll just hit you with this. If the Winnipeg Jets offered Nikolai Ehlers the Hellebuck-Scheifele deal, 8.5 by 7, do you think he gets it done, or does it go to July 1st? And if it goes to July 1st, is the number that he ends up getting from a team not Winnipeg more than what I just mentioned?
Yeah, I think if they offered him that, it probably doesn't get done because I think 7.25, right? I think is the Scheifele and...
No, 8.5.
Sorry, 8.7 at 8 point, right? 7 at 8.5. We're talking about like 60 million, 7 years, $60 million. I mean, there's some projections out there that suggest he could be in line closer to 9 million a year with the salary cap going up the way it is. One thing that the Jets would be able to offer that other teams would not, unless they do a sign and trade, would be that 8th year. And what's Nikolai Ehlers, 29 now, I believe. So is he would he want an 8-year that takes him to 37? Yeah, I mean, like, I don't believe the Jets have an artificial internal salary cap in that they can't go higher. And if they do, Huss, that's going to get shattered in a year from now when Kyle Connor gets his next deal. Because Kyle Connor is going to make more than Connor Hellebuck and Mark Scheifele. He just is. And if he's not making more with the Jets, he's going to be making more with another team because Kyle Connor is going to be worth a lot more than what Scheifele and Hellebuck signed for. And a big part of that, again, is the cap situation across the league. So it's interesting. I don't know. I do not know what Nikolai Ehlers truly feels about like what he's looking for. And part of that is because he's been so cagey about it this year. He's never really let us into his head about what is the most important thing. He does not strike me as a guy who's strictly just chasing the dollars. He strikes me as a very competitive individual who wants to win. And I think we just saw a great example of that. The fact he flew over seas to go represent his country. And you could say, Huss, the deck was stacked against Denmark. And that just shows like there's a passion there. This guy wants to win. And there may be some teams, and this is probably going to be part of his thought process. There may be teams that can throw more money at him than the Jets would be willing or able to. But where are they in their window? Are they winning? Are they competing for the President's Trophy next year? Are they even a playoff team next year? Are they a year or two away from being a year or two away? And if you're Nikolai Ehlers, are you willing to trade that off, the financial security of maybe another $1 million a year or something, for having to really be patient and, taking a few steps back in terms of the opportunity to win a championship, something he's never done. So, yeah, I guess part of my hesitation to make any real bold predictions are because he's kind of an enigma. He's kind of a mystery in terms of what is most important to him. All I can say is I think he really cares about his teammates with the Jets. I think he really likes this organization, this city. It's been the only one he's known in the NHL. And I think that ultimately will count for something. It's why, Huss, to me, I'm still probably in the 60-40 range. If I were giving odds, like 60% that he's gone. I know some colleagues of mine, I think, are a lot stronger on the he's gone narrative. Like they'd probably be closer to 80 or 90 or maybe higher. Maybe I'm just being naive here. I do think there's at least still a decent chance, although it's probably in the minority still, that he stays.
Yeah, listen, I think, Mike, it's going to come down to how much does he believe in the direction of this team over the course of the next 3, 4, 5 years. I would love to know, as I do think, if you put that offer to put him right there beside Scheifele and Hellebuck, I think that is something he would really consider. I think it would be doable from a team's perspective. And, we'll see. But I'm with you. There'll be a bad team that has a lot of cap space.
Right.
That'll be here's 9.5, here's 10.
Yeah.
Is it worth going there for? He's going to be very wealthy no matter what. But as I said, we'll be following this and looking for any nugget of information as we get closer to July 1st. Hopefully just out of the blue tweet from the Jets at some point in the middle of Winnipeg Sports Talk, or maybe 12:55, just so we can talk about it, the whole thing saying he's back.
Just as long as it's not on like a Saturday afternoon or something. Like we want to enjoy our weekends here. They're short and sweet enough as it is. So yeah, let's do it on a weekday, preferably when I'm not on holidays, when I'm looking for something to write about. But you're right, Huss. I think there's going to be a lot of news with the Jets. With regards to whether it's their own UFAs, whether it's their own RFAs. We certainly heard from Kevin Cheveldayoff last week, don't rule out contract extensions for Kyle Connor and or Adam Lowry before the team returns to the ice in September. Those clearly are on the radar, and for good reason. And then you've got, the draft, and you've got free agency, and I'm sure if you're the Jets, you'd like as much clarity on your financial situation heading into July 1st. Not that the Jets are typically a huge bidder, but yeah, it should be a really interesting next 4 or 5 weeks around here.
Well, for sure. And listen, we'll get to this next week, but I don't rule out the trading of their first round pick and a younger player or two to try to maybe fill a hole that they've had a tough time doing.
Agreed.
Just waiting for the deadline. Mike, great stuff as always. Enjoy the weather, buddy.
You bet. Thanks, Huss. Have a great
stuff.
Week.
There's Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press. All right, it is Des Scott week this week on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Saturday afternoon, 1 p.m., Canada and Haiti, does his final game as a member of Canada's women's national team. Diana Matheson, Canadian Soccer Hall of Famer, two-time Olympic medalist, former member of the women's Nats, is going to come up and join us right away. But if you haven't already, go to winnipegsportstalk.com, click on the contest, enter to win tickets for the game. And of course, if you do want to pick some up, bring a group, head out and support not only the team, but recognize the incredible career of Desiree Scott. Get your tickets, link in the description of the YouTube and the podcast. Listen, just before we bring in Diana, amazing tent sale at Royal Sports. As I mentioned to Remis, picked up 5 pairs of shoes. I'm good for another couple of years after a trip to Royal. There's nothing like the deals that you'll get at a Royal tent sale. So keep your eyes out for more events later on this summer. Make sure to give them a follow at Royal Sports Winnipeg on Instagram for the latest information on all of that and all the new stuff coming in for summer. But summer is here right now, pretty much. They've got a ton of bikes. Soccer, softball, baseball, you name it. If it's about getting outside, having fun, and getting active, Royal Sports is your headquarters for that, as well as the best selection of Winnipeg Jets and sports merchandise you will find anywhere. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. We'll give you more details on the next big tent sale coming up. Of course, Boston Pizza, your playoff headquarters. You can get back to BP tonight. If you're a Canes fan, you might have one more chance to see your team. Just after 7, Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals. And I'm not sure if the game will be good, but I can tell you that the BP playoff menu is amazing. Triple Pep Pizza, Wingman Pizza, wing flights are back along with that Scoville Showdown. And don't sleep on that Canadian All-Star Poutine. Absolutely amazing. If you are staying at home, you can always get it hot and fresh to your door by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. All right, just before we bring in Diana Matheson, crack a cold one and give a big cheers to Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, well, as we mentioned, it is Desiree Scott week here on Winnipeg Sports Talk in her hometown of Winnipeg as Des finishes her incredible career with the Canadian women's national team on Saturday afternoon, 1 p.m., Princess Auto Stadium, as her hometown looks to give her an incredible send-off. She is still playing professional soccer with the NSL, and what a perfect time to welcome in Canadian Soccer Hall of Famer and the founder and the chief growth officer of the Northern Super League, Diana Matheson, to WST to talk about one of our Canadian greats. Diana, thanks so much for doing this. It's great to have you back on the show.
Great to be back. I mean, you tell me it's Desiree Scott week, and I'm there.
I didn't think it would be a tough sell for people like you that have been teammates and that know her contributions. Let me ask you this. You were already on the women's national team, and you guys hadn't achieved the incredible things you did through that decade that you played together. What do you remember about a young Desiree Scott joining and showing up for training the first day and getting involved with the team?
Yeah, Des, oh man, I mean, Des is the player who's always, professional hype woman. You know it. She's bringing the energy. She's bringing the vibe. Young players coming on the team. I think at the time, I think we're actually kind of a bit of an intimidating bunch. I think the culture and a lot of the leadership in that women's national team kind of developed later on. So I think Des is said before, I wasn't actually that friendly when she first made the team. And I would say the shift in the culture of that team to then until now is in part because of Des. She's the heart of any team. She's gonna set the tone on the field with her intensity, her physicality, her passion. And she's going to set the tone off the field too with her heart and her energy and her empathy. And yeah, she was a part of the culture that formed in that team and still exists today. And the way former players speak about her, she's just a pleasure as a teammate.
You mentioned, her role as sort of the hype person. It really did become apparent, later on in her career when, she might have been hurt or things like they still wanted to have her around at all times. But of course, the best version of Desiree Scott was the destroyer in the middle of the midfield. I mean, just from a soccer perspective, her contributions, and I mean, you look at the medals that you guys won in the Olympics, how crucial a cog in the machine was Desiree Scott for the women's national team.
Irreplaceable. I think to follow through that metaphor, if you took out the cog, the gear that is Desiree Scott, I think it doesn't work. And, one of the defining moments in my career and all our careers, obviously, that were part of that team was the 2012 Olympics. And you can see it on full display from those games. If you go back and watch any of them, Desiree Scott in the midfield, defensively supporting our back four was a reason we were successful. And there's, iconic clips of her clearing the ball off the goal line against France in that bronze medal game. She's the reason why we were able to podium that games and then, build from there. I think she's, it must only be her and Sink and maybe one other player that has 3 Olympic medals for Canada. I think she's part of a very elite club, and that's for a reason. Goals win games, but defense wins championships. And Desiree Scott is a key part of that for Canada for so many years. But, as we've seen already, now she's with the Ottawa Rapid, new phase of her career, goal scorer as well. So, yeah, it's incredible.
We'll get to what she's doing in the Northern Super League in a minute, because it was a pretty incredible debut for someone that we're used to just patrolling the midfield and making life difficult for opponents. You mentioned 2012. I mean, that Olympic Games. Now, you and your teammates had just won gold at the 2011 Pan Am Games, but the Olympic Games was a whole nother level. I mean, Desiree, of course, was a huge part of it. You scored the bronze winning goal against the French. Just a quick thought back on that and just how pivotal a moment that was for Canadian soccer, not just Canadian women's soccer, and at the same time, Desiree's role on that club.
Yeah, it was a watershed moment for sure. And yeah, we'd won Pan Ams. John Herdman had come into the program right before that, but not too many months before that, less than a year before that 2012 Olympic Games, we'd been at a World Cup in Germany, almost, player for player, the same roster. We had high hopes of finishing in the top 4 of that tournament. And we essentially came last, didn't win a game, didn't make it out of the group stage. And, one of the differences was John Herdman came into that program and put so much more focus on culture and leadership and every other corner of the game. And 2012 was then a foundation on which, we came home and Canadians knew who we were. It gave a foundation for young players to come into the program next, hungry to not just win medals, but win gold medals. It gave a foundation for so many of us after the game. So it was truly a defining moment for soccer in Canada, I think. And having players like Desiree Scott as part of that team to build that culture was key to that. It's incredible. I think some of the things hopefully we're most proud of as part of that former team was you can still see parts of that culture today. You can see, that blue collar Canadian work ethic, but doing it with a smile, really united team that's there to support every player on the team and is so united on leaving, always leaving Canadian soccer better than we found it. And that wouldn't have been the same team without Desiree Scott.
It's funny you mentioned the blue collar work ethic and doing something with a smile. That is the definition of Desiree Scott. I mean, she, really in a lot of ways does it all. And I think back to that team, of course, yourself, Christine Sinclair, Desiree Scott. In a lot of ways, Diana, we can look back to that period of time and the legacy that you women have created is probably a big reason why you got the job that you have right now, growing women's soccer here in Canada with the National League and the Northern Super League.
Yeah, it absolutely provided us the platform. Like I said, it was the same roster in the 2011 World Cup that was at 2012, and we'd been together, a lot of us on that team for almost 10 years before that. And except for a few folks knowing who Sync was. No one knew who we were. And then kind of then onwards, the women's national team has become much more household names. Hopefully, everyone in Winnipeg knows who Desiree Scott is. And that's in part because of that games. And that's absolutely given us a platform. I think too, again, going back to John, the culture he built, the intentionality he put into, working on leadership and working on culture the same way we would work out in the gym or work on tactics on the field, putting that intentional learning in was a big part of that too, growing as people. So we had the platform and more tools coming out of that program to do what we're doing now. And absolutely without, the platform we were given and a lot of those lessons, we wouldn't have been able to get this Northern Super League off the ground because, we essentially went out and took a leap and built this thing ourselves, by former players, by women, with the goal of building a league that's deserving of the Canadian player and the Canadian fan. And that wouldn't have been possible without the platform and tools that the national team provided us and that 2012 gave us.
Well, while we're on your new venture, and it's something that's so important for soccer in Canada, National League, the Northern Super League is underway. And, while Desiree's finishing up with the women's national team, she's not done yet. And what a debut. I mean, fill people in if they haven't been following it on her impact very early in our nation's capital, playing for the Ottawa franchise in the Northern Super League.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, the Northern Super League, Canada's Women's Professional League, kicked off this year. It kicked off with 6 teams across Canada in Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, and Halifax. I had the pleasure of going to every home opener, and it only took the first game, Ottawa's home opener in front of the Rapid fans, and Desiree Scott, scrappy goal. The stadium exploded. You could see what it meant to her teammates, to her coach. I think everyone on the coaching staff in the Rapid was committed from day one to bring Desi in and then make sure they got her on the goal sheet. And yeah, I mean, I think my wife took a video of me when she scored. I was on my seat. Unbelievable. I said, I don't care what happens with the league after this. This is why we did it, for Desiree Scott goals. And hopefully she's just getting started too. She had an assist the other day in a game. So yeah, we got the destroyer working both ends of the field in the NSL early in the season. So yeah, Winnipeg fans, if you want to keep checking out Desiree Scott, your girl, maybe a little trip to Ottawa this summer to check her out with the Rapid.
Well, we'll officially adopt Ottawa as our team on Winnipeg Sports Talk in the Northern Super League.
For now, until we get a team.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And listen, just you can kind of give us on how people can get more information on the league and follow Des and all that. But just obviously we're focusing on Desiree because of the celebration game for her on Saturday. But when I think about those Olympic teams and obviously the Olympic champions. This league, in a lot of ways, has the Desiree Scotts involved, but a number of other very familiar faces from the most famous soccer team that our country's ever produced that is, in a lot of ways, the leading faces in this league in its debut season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes back again to we've got a generation of player, and it's the same as anyone in women's sport. I think we care deeply about making sure the game is in better shape than it was for us. And you can see Christine Sinclair, who has been involved, since the beginning of the idea of this league, is now part owner of Vancouver Rise. Melissa Tancredi and her clinic out there, the Workshop Performance Clinic, part of the medical team. You've got Robin Gale working with the Rise right now. Stephanie Labbe as well, sporting director of the Rise. Aaron McLeod still playing as well, Halifax Tides. I've joked a few times, actually, that part of the reason to start this league was just so I could hang out with my friends more often and get them to work in Canada. So it's going well so far. And current players, too. Obviously, we've got Quinn with the women's national team with the Rise, Emma Regan, Samantha Chang. And, the goal of this league, too, is you're going to see every future Christine Sinclair, every future Desiree Scott. You're going to get to know them first in the Northern Super League.
Diana, absolute pleasure having you on the program. It is so great to see the growth of women's soccer, which you and your teammates really spearheaded and inspired over a decade ago. Now with young women having a chance to play right here in Canada with the Northern Super League, and can't think of a better person to kick things off for our team, Ottawa. with Desiree Scott doing it. But Saturday is going to be a real special day. Just a quick message to sports fans in Winnipeg about the significance of this national team match against Haiti on Saturday, and the opportunity to send off one of the best to ever do it in her hometown.
Yeah, we've got Canada against Haiti. I mean, Haiti, obviously not known as one of the powers in women's soccer, but I can tell you they have some of the best younger players in the world of women's football right now. So super exciting talents on that field. It's going to be a great game. But at the end of the day, Winnipeg, this game is about sending off, homegrown Winnipeg's own Desiree Scott with style. Make sure you're coming. Make sure you tell 8 friends and bring 16, because we've got to fill that stadium and make some noise, because that's what D. Scott deserves. I'm going to be there. I can't wait. So let's fill that stadium.
Great stuff. And quickly, where can people find out, and get all the information on our newest professional league here in Canada, the Northern Super League?
Yeah, for the Northern Super League, nsl.ca. You can check out all the teams there. But obviously, Ottawa Rapids, special interest to you folks. Probably they've got merch. You can check out tickets. You can check out our schedule. All the games are either on CBC Gem, CBC, TSN, or on nsl.ca. So check it out.
Diana, thanks so much for doing this. We'll see you Saturday to give Des a big Winnipeg send-off.
Thanks so much. Looking forward to it.
For our Gold Eyes game on June 19th down at the ballpark. We're going to do another patio party. We've got sorry, what was that? Reed?
Sorry, I screwed up. Can you start again from the after Diana? I'm an idiot.
Oh,
I do that every time.
Okay. Great stuff with Diana on, if you missed that. We are going to have an amazing week celebrating Des's incredible career with the Canadian national women's team. Rob Gale's going to join us tomorrow. We'll have some other very special guests as we get closer to Saturday. But in the meantime, the link is in the description for tickets for the YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, you can get it there as well. Let's get a great crowd out to celebrate Des's incredible career and get a chance to welcome the CANWNT to Princess Auto Stadium for what should be just an awesome, awesome afternoon. We are doing a contest for tickets as well. So if you go to the website, winnipegsportstalk.com, you'll be able to enter to win tickets. We'll give those out kind of midweek so people can make sure they know they have them and will make their plans. But it's going to be a great, great Saturday down at Princess Auto Stadium. Jake's going to come on with us in a minute, but while I'm talking about the website, tickets are live for the Winnipeg Sports Talk Gold Eyes Patio Party on Thursday, June 19th. Would love to see you all joining us. We filled it last year, so get your tickets sooner as opposed to later. Shout out to everyone that's already bought tickets during the show today when we announced it right off the top. $20 all in. We'll have a private area for our entire Winnipeg Sports Talk crew right down field level in the lower level patio. We'll do some prizes there. It's going to be so much fun. We had a great time last year. Can't wait to do it again. So go to winnipegsportstalk.com for all the details, but get your tickets before they're full. And again, we'll meet everyone at the start of the game, get their wristbands out for everyone, and go and have a great time down at the ballpark on the 19th. Assiniboia Downs, we're back at it tomorrow. This is going to be a beautiful weekend to get out for live racing. If you haven't been out there, maybe tomorrow might be a perfect day to do that. 7:30 post time. And you might still be able to snag some room in that dining room for what should be an amazing, amazing night of live racing. We'll make our picks tomorrow. asdowns.com for all information on live racing throughout the season. And Matt, I got to shout out our friends at Breezy Bend. we'll do our golf report. Shout out to the winner of the tournament on the weekend, Ben Griffin, who held on. He won the Charles Schwab Challenge. But I'll tell you what, golfed last night at Breezy. I'm not sure we'll have a better evening to golf all year long than what we had last night. That being said, I can't wait out to get their courses in great shape, getting ready for a big year, hosting the Manitoba Open. And it's going to get a little gnarly as they get ready for the pros later on this summer. If you want more information on Breezy Bend, go to breezybend.ca or give our pal Corey Johnson a holler at the clubhouse about making Breezy your long-term golfing home and getting on the waiting list for next year. All right, it's Monday. Let's bring on our pal JBM, Jake Bolin from Coolbet, to get to the Coolbet lines and have a little wrap. Jake, how was your weekend? You guys getting some good weather out there in Southern Ontario or what?
No, the weather's been terrible. This is like the first day we've actually had nice weather.
Did May Long suck for you guys?
Yeah, May Long was awful. Like, it was an awful weekend. It rained, I think, from Thursday to Sunday this past weekend. And then finally today we're getting some sun and, trying to take advantage. Obviously it's tough when you're at the desk for most of the day, but I keep hearing about all the weather you've been getting, and I'm just sitting here like, okay, when's our time for a bit of nice weather so I can get out on the golf course and maybe just go on a walk, just anything to get out of the house and not be stuck in the rain.
Yesterday was like 23, no wind, no bugs. This is our forecast. This is just not as much to poke you, but just to let everybody know. Make their plans accordingly. Sunny and 25 today, sunny 24 tomorrow, sunny 27 Wednesday, sunny 30 Thursday, sunny 29 Friday, Saturday, sunny and 34, and Sunday, sunny and 32.
Here, you want mine? Just since we're doing weather reports?
Yes.
So the rest of the week. So Tuesday, cloudy 21. Wednesday, 60% chance rain 17. Thursday, 85% chance rain 16. Friday, 45% chance rain 21. Saturday, cloudy 14. Sunday, sun and cloud 17. Monday, 40% chance of rain 23. Tuesday, full sun 21. And then Wednesday, 40% chance of rain, but 27. That's about as hot as it's going to get in the next.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, you got to get all that crappy weather out before I come out and see you guys. We go to the Canadian Open and do some Blue Jays and whatnot. So we'll make that happen. Hey, listen, before we get to the games tonight, conference finals, and check these lines, I want to ask you a question because it's something we've been talking about today on the program. Free agency is coming up. We know there's a likelihood that Mitch Marner won't be around. The Leafs always have a lot of money. They're going to have a lot of cap space. How much do you think the Toronto Maple Leafs would be willing to pay Sam Bennett to move from the Florida Panthers to the Leafs? Like, we've talked a lot about playoff type guys. What do the Panthers have that other teams are missing? This is not a guy that has huge point totals. I think 55 points is his top. But to me, you look at what wins right now in the playoffs, and that guy's going to be on the top of a lot of general managers' wish lists. He's going to get paid. How significant do you think the Leafs would roll out to get a guy like Bennett to move in the division to Toronto?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation, Huss, because you look at the free agency pool coming up here, and it's not as potent as that 2026 pool. So, the Leafs in a situation where it's like next year, they got to take the step. They got to get to an Eastern Conference final. Anything to just change this kind of lull they've been in the, the era of Matthews and Nylander and the likes of Marner and such. Sam Bennett is that guy. He's one of the guys at the top of my list, as a fan of this team. But with the reports coming out, how much it's going to cost to get this guy, like a team willing to pay $10 million, some speculating that might be the Leafs. I just don't know if I can commit. Like, if I would want to be the Leafs and commit to something that high. I mean, listen, I love Sam Bennett on the Leafs, and I know you already spoke about it earlier in the program. Like, you would take him on the Winnipeg Jets as well, and I'm sure many fans would. It's just a matter of, what is the price point? Is it going to be too much money, to get a guy like that? And, you're not – the reality of Sam Bennett is you're probably not going to get a ton out of him in the regular season. He'll have his runs, but when push comes to shove and it's playoff time and it's time to go, that guy is super important to what the Florida Panthers do and super important to what, any team would be looking for in the playoffs. So, as a Leaf fan, I'm a little hesitant to pay, to want them to pay that $10 million. But there's no doubt in my mind that Sam Bennett is built, to win Stanley Cups, to be on teams that can win Stanley Cups. And the most frustrating part is I read a tweet just before we hopped on here was like, Shanahan, Dubas era, they're looking at players that, we talk all about, players that can help you win in the playoffs. Well, two guys they let go. Zach Hyman didn't want to send him an offer. He went to Edmonton. You can see what he's doing right now. I think you and Dusty were talking about him earlier. And Nazem Kadri traded him for Tyson Barrie and Alex Kerfoot, and he went on to win a Stanley Cup in Colorado. I know there was some, suspension issues with him, but frankly, guys that can play in the playoffs, the Leafs are hunting for guys like that right now. And you had two in-house that you let go.
I'm fascinated by this Bennett thing, especially if they win it again. I mean, a two-time back-to-back Stanley Cup champion that, has that edge. That's what you need to play against a team like the Florida Panthers. And if they're the standard, and the reason I bring it up to you for the Leafs is that, there's been got enough talk about what that team is missing, playing a team like Florida. And not only would you be getting him, but you're taking him from the team that you got to beat. They might be willing. And listen, this is the time where they've got the scratch to do it. If Mitch goes elsewhere. Anyways, we'll see what happens. Let's get to this game tonight. Heading over to our Coolbet lines for tonight. Is it last call for the Carolina Hurricanes? I certainly think so. Canes plus 145. Panthers minus 172. I'm actually going to ride the puck line. I mean, these games haven't been close. Listen, I got a lot of respect for Rod the Bot and the Canes. I'm sure they'll put out their best foot forward, but it just seems like they're swimming upstream right now. Plus 142 for the puck line. I'm actually surprised the line's not bigger, considering the Canes or the Panthers are at home and what we've seen so far, Jake. But do you give the Canes much hope in extending this to a fifth game, or will it be a fourth straight sweep in the conference finals?
Huss, if you remember, I didn't give them much hope at the start of the series. I was not sold on this Canes team. And listen, you can't apologize for who this team played. It's not their fault. They had a fairly easy route to get to the Eastern Conference Final. But the fact of the matter is, Florida's in a different weight class than the Carolina Hurricanes, and they've been proving that so far in this series. I don't have a lot of hope for the Hurricanes. You got to go on the road. You're down 3-0. I'm sure it's just, the mindset has to be just win one, right? Win one, get back to Raleigh, and see what you can do from there. The Edmonton Oilers were able to take the Florida Panthers to 7 last year after falling 3-0 in that series. I don't think Carolina's in that same weight class as the Edmonton Oilers. I think, like I said, it's unfortunate, but the Metro Division is clearly one of the weaker divisions, in the league this year, and I think that's really showing this Eastern Conference Final. It was hilarious. I was at the bar for Game 3. We were just sitting there watching the game, and my buddy went to the bathroom. I think it was 1-1 or 2-1 at the time, and by the time he got back from the bathroom, it was 5-1. It was like a blink of an eye, and Florida had just completely taken over that Game 3. So I don't have a lot of faith in the Hurricanes. I think initially my prediction was, Panthers in 5. It might be Panthers in 4, and Hurricanes might be looking at 16 straight Eastern Conference Final game losses, which, as a Leaf fan, I don't feel bad for them, but I'm sure their fans aren't loving watching this level of hockey here in the biggest time of the year.
I'm going to be on the puck line on this one. Florida minus 1.5 at plus 142. And if you're looking for a player prop tonight, I'm rolling with Carter Verhaeghe. Plus 205 to score tonight. Listen, their scoring has been so balanced and spread out. I'm going to lean on one of the guys that, has been a traditional playoff performer and producer for them to get on the board. Total in this one is 5.5. And it's interesting, the over 5.5 is minus 104, despite 7, 5, and 8 games being scored in these games. I don't mind the over at this one as well, but favorite play, we're going to try and get some plus money on the puck line for the Panthers at 1.5. Then we have OKC in Minnesota tonight in the West Conference Finals of the NBA. OKC smashed the T-Wolves twice at home and then went in as a 3-point favorite in Minnesota. And Jake, they got steamrolled as badly as any team has in the playoffs all year. They were down 40 at one point. It wasn't ended up being close. And yet here we are. They're still the same 3-point favorites and minus 140 line money line faves in a series where the home team hasn't won. I still think I like OKC, but I got to tell you, if I was leaning Minnesota, that plus 126 home number after what they did in Game 3 looks pretty good.
Yeah, listen, Huss, I could be wrong, but I do think Game 3 was more of an anomaly than the norm. Like, I don't think all of a sudden Minnesota got home and it was like a eureka moment. I think it was just one of those games for OKC where they were just a bit outclassed. I think it's a great opportunity for them to come back, bounce back on the road and take this series, stranglehold on the series heading back to OKC for Game 5. So I'm with you. Actually, I know you had the ride with Huss, and I'm sure we'll get to it here in a second, but I love the ride with Huss tonight. I'm on the Panthers puck line minus 1.5. I texted a buddy of mine, and he said, if the Panthers are up, you think it's going to be early goalie pulls, if Carolina wants to find themselves getting back into the game, and, that could open up the door for some extra goals for Florida if they are up late in this one. And then, OKC, I think it's, you could argue you're getting some good value on OKC, a team that has been, unbelievable all season. I know they had a battle last series against Denver, but Denver, is a veteran team, a team that's won a championship. Minnesota, they got to this point last year. It feels like, they're just kind of hitting a juggernaut in OKC, and I could be completely wrong. Timberwolves win tonight, Huss. We got ourselves quite the series headed back to OKC. But I'm with you. I think it's the Thunder tonight. If you don't like the juice on the minus 149, you can go with the minus 3. I don't mind that one bit.
Yeah, I was hoping that maybe after the T-Wolves pumped them the way they did in Game 3, I might be looking at like a minus 130 or something. But listen, the book knows, the odds makers knows they're not moving off OKC because of one game that got away from them. Well, you mentioned the ride with Huss. If you go to the combo cards, we got the super boost tonight. It's a Kachuk point and Shea over 24.5. Sure, I'll be getting on that one. That's boosted to even money. The lamplighters for the Panthers, Aho and Kachuk. But there you have the ride with us. We got a real nice boost on this one. OKC to win. Panthers minus 1.5 boosted from plus 309 to plus 355. There's some other great options. Check the exclusives and everything up in the combo cards. And of course, if you haven't played a Coolbet before, use the promo code WST. Hook you up with a 100% bonus on your first deposit up to $200. Jake, before we go, we should mention registration is open. I am already in for the return of Partner Poker with WST on Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. Winnipeg time will start, 7:30 for our friends out in Edmonton. And you can go in and count yourself in right now over on the Coolbet Poker app.
Yeah, a few people in there now. I think Remo got in there. We were chatting. If you're having issues with the app, I was talking with Remis earlier. It may just need to be like the old uninstall, reinstall the app. The browser's working just fine. That's how I'm checking the numbers. And this always happens with the poker. It's going to be like, 5 to 10 people tomorrow evening. And by Wednesday, we're going to be looking at like 50 plus people. I know how it always goes. I'll send some reminders out on socials. If you want the registration details, pretty simple. Like, head over to Coolbet. There's a poker tab. If you're on desktop at the top of the page, click on poker. You can either download the poker app or play poker in browser. And then you'll see a tournaments tab. You can click on that. And then there's a name bar right in the top right. Put in WST and it's there. WST Poker Series. Huss is already in there. Remis is in there. I think we have another name in there too. Son of Dork. I know he's been in the tournaments before.
Yep. We'll make sure Randy River knows and all of the other regulars. I'm sure a bunch of the ESTers will be in there as well.
Another thing, Huss, I want to mention, and this isn't up yet, but I was speaking with one of our bookies today, And I know you guys said you have your June 19th Gold Eyes game.
Yes.
We are going to start to roll out some Gold Eyes game-by-game odds.
Love it.
Probably sometime this week. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, let me see if I have the update here directly from our bookie.
I told you we were working on getting Gold Eyes games listed.
Yeah, so I said the season started, maybe 2 weeks ago. I told him you guys are partnered with him. He said, yeah, he's been looking into it, and he'd like to start offering them this week in like a general Canadian baseball category. So keep your eyes out. I'll get it in the hot events tab as well. And, hopefully it'll be game by game with the Gold Eyes going forward from there. So that'll be a lot of fun, especially for your guys' night at the ballpark. I think that'll be great if you can get some people on the Gold Eyes.
Oh, for sure.
That'll be exciting time.
Hit the team total over. And, listen, the pitching has been so good. That's sort of been the backbone. We'll just be money lining it probably, but hopefully get a win. That'll all be there.
Sorry, a couple other leagues, too. We do have the Western Canadian Baseball League. I think Edmonton has a team, Okotoks, Medicine Hat. They got a bunch of games up right now. That's starting this week. We have futures for that league as well. We've got men's and women's College World Series on both baseball and softball, Memorial Cup, like a ton of stuff going on right now. I know, we're coming to the end of the NBA, we're coming to the end of the Stanley Cup playoffs, but at the same time, we have a ton over at Coolbet right now. So French Open's going on right now. I know I'm just like sitting here plugging a bunch of different leagues, but if you want to get on the action, there's really never a bad time. Like there's still a lot going on.
Dude.
And even if you're not a big sports bettor, we got the poker, we got the casino, plenty to choose from, in a big week.
Yeah, the as I say, we're focused in on poker night on Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. And you can hit us or hit the guys at Coolbet with a DM if you got any questions or having any issues. I can't wait for it. And yes, I have been all over. I got into some French Open futures last week. Now we're starting to see how the draw continues. Some great starts for Canadians. A young 18-year-old Canadian woman won her first round match, first ever at a Grand Slam. Chapeau got a win yesterday. We may have to lean on our buddy John Horn later on this week to talk a little French Open now that hockey's a little quieter right now. But Jake, we can't wait for Wednesday, and let me know as soon as possible on those American Association lines for the Gold Eyes, and we'll be all over that. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, talk soon.
Appreciate it. At Jake Bolin Moss on X, folks. Give Jake a follow. And, of course, at Coolbet Canada for more on this. And, of course, the WST Poker Tourney on Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. start. We get it going. All right, let's get Remo back in here. Reem, this is probably something we should play tomorrow anyways on the show. But for folks that have hung around till the end, should we fire out this Chris Johnson?
Sure. First of all, okay, wait. American Association lines?
Yes.
And futures? That would be wild. So
the guy said, hey, they appreciate they're working with us. They want to have a service that, takes care of Winnipeg sports fans, and the Jets and the Bombers, all that stuff will always be there. But, if we're going to be spending a lot of this summer at the ballpark, why the heck not be able to put $20 down on the fish when we head down to the park? Maybe pay for the barbecue bowl or the pierogies or the butter chicken that we're eating while we're there.
Yeah, and we're going to be seeing a lot of people there. We did put the link today. I'm going to send out an email on our newsletter, so get on that link in the description on our website as well. But shout out to Phyllis, Bobby B, Al Broderick, Russ Lowen, and Les Tom said all buy tickets. So that's a nice chunk right there. Still plenty available. I know it'll probably go down, as Jake said, like you put out these things for the future. Everyone waits the last minute, but hey, they're certainly going. So nice to see people jumping on it very early. I haven't even promoted it on social media yet or newsletters. People who've been watching this, been
crew,
in the chat.
The
here.
Heartbeat of WST. The people that are with us live on YouTube. I see Duck Dad. I've heard rumors of CFL 110. Confirm or deny. That is confirmed tomorrow, right about this time, when we're finished with Winnipeg Sports Talk. the premiere of our first show of the year. And listen, Hammer is cooking right now. We've got one big question for each CFL team, which we'll get into. And then we're going to dive into a few of our favorite futures at the end. We'll look at some Grey Cup odds, MVP odds, some win totals. And then next week, as we get closer to CFL kickoff, we'll have a ton of our favorite bets for the year. And we'll be picking every game against the spread at Coolbet all year long. Myself, Jeff Hamilton. I think Remis is going to get in the mix for a little bragging rights, but we'll regularly be putting together a little partner parlay and not much more, which you can get at Coolbet. And Duck Dad, by the way, if you can, I know you are very, very connected with our EST friends. Let them know in the Discord that for everyone that was loving the Lock Shop poker tourneys, it's just under WST now, but you're all welcome, and hopefully we'll all see you guys back on the virtual felt, as it were, Wednesday night. We made sure it was on an Oiler off night. So, who knows? Maybe you guys will just be counting down one more win before going to the Stanley Cup final and playing poker with us on Wednesday. All right. Yeah. So we'll get into this tomorrow. But as we continue talking about Nikolai Ehlers, the man himself, Dave Minuk, mining the internet for anything we can get on Nikolai Ehlers' status. And so what was this? Chris Johnson was on, was it TSN you said, Reem?
So TSN has their top 50 UFA list out there. And Ehlers was top 5. He may have been number 4. I can't go to it right now because I have the video open. But like Marner is 1. Sorry, here's the list. Marner is 1. Sam Bennett's 2. John Tavares is 3. Ehlers is 4. And so I guess they went through saying, okay, are these guys going to stay or go? And Chris Johnson with Gino Reda, they did this segment on talking about Nikolai Ehlers. So do you want to hear what Chris had to say? Yeah, and
just by the way, just for the record, that's how John Tavares is ahead of Nikolai Ehlers makes no sense to me.
He's 34 years old, and Ehlers is 29.
It is insane. I personally will guarantee you that it goes Marner, then it'll go Sam Bennett, and then it'll go Nikolai Ehlers, and John Tavares will be after those guys when it comes to what they get. And that includes even if he was to re-sign in Winnipeg. Speaking of re-signing in Winnipeg, this is what Chris Johnson had to say on that topic and the potential of Nikolai Ehlers staying here in the Peg.
A little less clear with Ehlers. I mean, I think ultimately for the Jets to keep him, they might have to extend beyond where their comfort zone is to pay him, just because of what I mentioned. The market dynamics suggest someone like him is going to have a fair number of opportunities out there. I think that there's a lot of other top teams in the league, of which Winnipeg is one, that are going to be looking for scoring help. And so whether that's Montreal, Carolina, maybe an up-and-coming team like Chicago, go down the list. I mean, there's a lot of teams I think that will be in the market for dynamic playmaking forwards, and there aren't too many of them out there, especially if some of the names on this list end up signing in their current places before July 1st. So, let's revisit this in a few weeks, I'd say, with Ehlers. The Jets season has only recently ended. He went immediately over to the World Hockey Championship after that point. But, I think there's a desire for him to stay in Winnipeg on both sides of the table, but the deal has to make sense, and it's not yet clear if that's going to happen.
I'm here. That was such a positive and uplifting quote, Remo. We'll play it tomorrow. We might play it every day this week. A desire on both sides to make something happen and make it work. I don't think we could have had a better insider report than possible. I mean, of course, he's going to need to get what he's worth. That goes without saying. But the fact that it seems like there is mutual interest to make this work. As I say, the Scheifele-Hellebuck deal, 8.5 by 7. And if they grind them, give them the 8th year. Who says no?
Yeah, we're going to be staying tuned to every insider nugget coming out over the next month. I can't wait to do what we do best here, speculate on Jets moves. The season may be over, but the real season of speculation leading into July 1, and they have to figure out a way to make it work. I think if the Jets lose him, it would be a big loss to their scoring depth. How are they going to replace his production? I'm not too sure. They would have to make a big move, I think, if they want to return to being, atop of the Central Division like they were this season. So this is a big move for them. And Nikolai Ehlers seems like he wants to stay, but he wants to get what he's worth. So that is encouraging. That's like, okay, they talked for 2 hours last week. Can they find a way to come together and work it out? We'll have to wait and see. I did ask ChatGPT, got to come up with a name. Like we had Dubois drama, Ehlers watch, Dubois drama, Trotz watch. What about Ehlers? What are we going to do for him? I asked ChatGPT. They did say Ehlers watch. We have Nikolai or buy, fly or stay, the Ehlers edition.
Fly or stay. That's good.
There's some other ones. Oh, this one was okay. The Danish decision. There's Ehlers exit ? Or
no, Ehlers extension.
Yeah, Ehlers .
Well, that was the one that we didn't need ChatGPT for that one.
There was also Ehlers or else, a playful take that underscores the potential impact of his departure. So we're still a work in progress. My friend ChatGPT coming up with whatever suggestion.
Hey, Mary Jane said, watch this. The breaking news on Lars and Huss will be somewhere in North America. Well, if you want to make a bet, in 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be heading out, hooking up with Jake and a bunch of the fellas for the Canadian Open, Blue Jays, the Pat Mayo live show in Toronto. So maybe that would be a perfect weekend for that to happen, and I can do a reaction video from either somewhere on the golf course or the Blue Jays or somewhere in Toronto. By the way, Schnitzy, what's up, Zach? He was fired up. Got to take his kid to his first Bomber game. You love to see it. He said, does Ehlers demand more minutes for him to stay? I don't think that will be. I mean, listen, for all the talk that a lot of people put in about playing time and all that, which is completely legitimate. I mean, the more Ehlers, the better, as far as you ask me. The one thing that we've never heard that from is Nikolai Ehlers, his agent, anything like that. I mean, he has been the quintessential team player and done everything that he's asked, and the more that he plays, the more he produces. Obviously, he helped the power play in a big time. So I just can't say whether that is a massive issue on his part or it's something that we talk more about and the fans of Nikolai Ehlers continue to bang the drum for. But certainly if we base it on history, this has not been a squeaky wheel, despite probably every opportunity to do that if that was the type of player that he was. So anyways, we'll get to that again tomorrow on the program. We'll have the rest of the usual suspects in this week to kick around what's happening in the playoffs, look ahead to the draft, free agency, and get their thoughts on Nikolai Ehlers. Tomorrow at this time, don't forget, myself, Jeff Hamilton, first edition of CFL 110. And we'll play that right after WST tomorrow. In the meantime, go to winnipegsportstalk.com, get your Gold Eyes tickets for the patio party on June 19th, and make sure to enter that contest. If you haven't already, get your tickets for Saturday. Des Scott week continues as we get closer to her retirement match on Saturday afternoon on what's going to be a steamy summer day. Couldn't be better. So click that link to buy tickets, enter to win the contest. We'll have Rob Gale and some other very special guests throughout the week here on WST to celebrate the incredible career of Winnipeg's own destroyer. Thanks to Diana Matheson for kicking off Dead Scott Week with us today. John Hodge on the Bombers. And, of course, Mike McIntyre, Jake Bolin as well. Great way to kick off the week. We'll be back tomorrow. Lots going on. Reggie and Jamie Leach jumping on tomorrow on the program. We'll have Rob Gale. We'll have a little more hockey talk as well. Maybe even Dave Pagnotta from the fourth period. You know where to find us tomorrow, folks. 1 p.m. right here. Winnipeg Sports Talk. Shout out to you podcast listeners. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow for the latest on all things Winnipeg sports and then some here on WST.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.